All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome. Talkin' Shop with Outlier Firefighters. This is episode 21. I'm here with David Pruitt. I also forgot to tell you in the green room, up until like literally 4 days ago, I had a mustache, and I'm really glad that I shaved mine because I already was getting made fun of. And if I had to, well, not stand next to you, but be next to you with that. So congratulations on your nose hair, by the way.
Thank you. I almost shaved it off today. Had a moment of weakness, and
Oh, mine grew like eyebrows. Like I got nothing in the middle, and it was rough. Everyone kept telling me for weeks, like, "Oh, it'll grow in." It never grew in. I tried. It was like 2 months of it, and I gave up. But anyway, thank you for coming on the show. I'm really excited to have you here, and I'm excited to share your wisdom to other people, and we'll kind of get rolling here. So, jump right into the first question. Is what was your first exposure to the fire service?
well, being second generation, it was through my dad. Um, and even as a little kid, we grew up in Fort Worth, Texas, on the south side, and he would at our street, and then it would go past Temple Street would go past. Pump and truck 17 would come by the end of our street, and he had a scanner, and we could hear him leaving the house, and then winding up the old queue, and he would hold me on his shoulders and watch. And it was an old open cab apparatus, like a 65-foot mid mount ladder, uh, and then we would go down to Station Two, which is one of the most beautiful stations on earth. Huge multi-base station, multi-poles, and we would just walk around. And he was a buff, and not only was he on the job, EMS there in Fort Worth, we'd chase fire trucks and chase fires, and was fortunate. Watched Emergency. That was our go-to. Uh, and we had to watch it real time. There was no VCR stuff like that in the '70s. So that was my exposure through him and through his buddies, and visiting the fire stations that he worked at, and and seeing those things firsthand through him. And so yeah, that's my first exposures to it.
Yeah, how lucky, how fortunate. It's awesome to get exposed to that so young. And then,
Absolutely.
when did you know that you were gonna do it?
Uh, I think even as a little kid, that's what pulled me. I know we're going to talk about passionate stuff later. Like every career day, they would encourage us to dress up with what we wanted to be. I never came as anything else other than a fireman. Like old set of his bunker gears, or he had hip boots and stuff. I would bring that stuff, and I would wear it. Be sloshing around. As a 8, 9 year old in his stuff, and so it was something that was always there at that forefront of thought. When I got into college and everything, we talked about earlier, I wish I would have done it. 18 years old, graduating high school. My parents encouraged me greatly to go to college, and I'm glad they did. Uh, and got into that and pursued stuff. But every time that truck went by, every time I'm with him, I'd go see him at work. There's just that pull, and so finally, I got to a point in my life. Okay, I've got to do this. It wasn't try it. It wasn't this. I've got to go do this. There's a missing component that this has got to be the answer to, and I got lucky. That I was right. I mean, that's what I wanted to be doing. Programmed, if you will, through the countless years of conversations with him, watching fires, and being at his, like I say, at his fire station, stuff like that. I pursued it. Got into EMT school, got into fire school, got hired on paramedic. All the other classes that most places are necessary, and really haven't looked back. And so it was awesome. Yeah,
Yeah, that is awesome to get bit and just roll with it. Uh,
yeah,
yeah, I close to the same. I didn't realize it until I was probably like 19 or 20, and then I
okay,
got on paid on call. I was going to actually go to school to be a chef, and
Okay.
which I get to cook anyway on shift, so it works out. But and that's why I was curious because it didn't connect with me, even though I grew up around it. It didn't connect with me until I was older, and then I did a ride along, and I was like, okay, now I get it. Like it was much more than just rollerblading on the bay
Yeah.
floor and those other things that I grew up around. So it's cool that it just clicked for you. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, and if you asked anybody I grew up with, if I was anything else other than this, they would be, hang on, what? This is the guy.
Yeah,
I never showed up as a pilot or a doctor or construction work. Never. I mean, it was fireman every year for 12 straight years.
that's awesome. You got a howdy chief from Mason
Yeah,
McCulloch. What is it?
Mikulik.
Mikulik.
Yep.
Hashtag C shift over there. So
Yep.
Yeah.
They're on today, actually. Yeah.
well, cool. Thanks for joining us. If you guys are in here live, and go ahead and throw questions in here, and I totally we encourage that. So
Nothing crazy.
yeah, well, fire service related questions maybe, but
Exactly.
so we kind of talked a little bit about the beginning of your career and getting things going. From then to where you are now, how did your career progress to your current position?
So got hired. Buck private firefighter. And I was already actively pursuing. So when I got hired in, what my fear was, I had already seen so many things just being active in my dad's career. Were those things going to line up? Was experience going to meet education? And then there were some defining moments, thanks to some of my mentors. What I was educated on wasn't necessarily what I was learning. And then that experience. So I was educated on a lot of stuff. And, as we talk later, continue these conversations, what we now know through the textbooks is some faulty stuff. So as I started to learn things and then experience things, I always had that zeal for learning. So I was trying to be everywhere I could be. And if I could get in a class someplace, pay my own way to go someplace, I was doing those things just simply. And it's weird to say, and I know there's guys out there that would be like, were you doing it for what reasons were you doing it for? I wanted to simply know things. I didn't want to ever be in a situation to where if it was all on me, or if somebody looked over, hey, what do you think? Bam, here's 5 answers that may solve this, or at least move us to the next step of project or, resolution of a problem. So I was constantly looking at those things, and I caught the right waves. I'm not a surfer at all, but when you look at those guys, they can see those waves that are going to potentially get them the best scores and the best outcomes. And so I looked for those things. And I learned this early on from one of my first captains. We put ourselves out there. How did we get opportunities? Well, we got opportunities because we weren't afraid to fail. And you put yourselves out there for a promotional process, or you put yourself out there in a class that may not be your strong suit. I know guys that all they teach is forcible entry, and they're great at it. You put them on a roof, they may be a soup sandwich, they're not great at some of the hose movement stuff. We put ourselves out there knowing that failure was definitely an option, if we didn't critique and evaluate and do those things to make sure failure turned into success. And so I pursued those things. And, I like I said, I put myself in for promotions that I didn't get, knowing that, seeing the process, seeing the thoughts, okay, what are they looking for in X, Y, and Z as a candidate in places. And, when I got the opportunities, I won't say I was ready for all of them. I think that would be arrogant and ignorant. But wow, okay, I'm now at lieutenant, or I'm at senior firefighter. I'm at making truck captain in our system at the time. Wow, okay, I'm failing miserably again. Okay, let me reach out. Okay, who am I reaching to? And that's where I was fortunate. One, through my dad's relationship, and then as I was building relationships outside of the department. Okay, I'm struggling with this, and you get to go to an officer class, and there's 40 other guys in that class from all over the state or the nation. Wow, I'm struggling with the same things. Or, hey, we've already overcome this. Here's what we did. And and it may be 10 things that don't work, but then it may be that one thing. Wow, okay, that might be the simple step or the difficult step that moves that process forward, either with personnel or equipment, or there's things. There are stacks of notes, both paper and mental, that are waiting for the opportunity to solve problems that I may come up against. Uh, and I've tried to be a steward of all of that that's been given to me. So, yeah, I made it through those processes. Little over 10 years ago, we went to a DPS model. The police chief at the time, he became the overall boss of everybody. And we started looking at just problem solving and what would best utilize in a city of 10,000 people. The sign says 8,456, but we know we're right about that 10, 12,000 mark. We've got streets that need repair, water that needs repaired, citizens that have needs, and one of those needs is public safety. How do we best utilize all of our staff? And there have been multiple times having a cross-trained staff has provided that immediate resolution or immediate band-aid, if you will. And literally some days it may be we run 2 paramedic patrol units. They have been on scene 2 to 3 minutes ahead of the ambulance or the fire truck, and have been able to start making critical adjustments to patients or to fire scenes. It was actually Mason. He's on tonight. He actually made a save out of a second floor window. One of our patrol paramedics was there first. He's also a firefighter, was able to identify exactly the window the mom and the kid were at. Mason and Rob threw the ladder perfectly up to the window. I'm extremely thankful he didn't have to go in. She was able to be at the window for him. Was good smoke conditions. Was able to get the infant out and then get the mom out. And so it's a system that's worked and is working, and it's a system that requires constant updates and maneuvering. So when that happened, I promoted to what was our commander position. Was created for me and another guy, and we kind of became those shift liaisons, almost a battalion chief level type position. From there, at the time, it was a deputy chief's position, was the next step up, and was actually over the division itself, fire EMS and special ops. And then just recently, within the last year, or I guess it was a couple of years now, my title's now major. And so me and my counterpart on the PD side, we control the major divisions, which is the way the big chief explained it to a city manager, and it kind of stuck. So, yeah, Major David Pruitt, Chief of Fire, EMS, and Special Operations, also the Assistant Emergency Manager. My ID weighs 6 pounds, just with all the. Most days I just go by Dave, and it seems to work fairly well. I have zero desire to sit in the director's chair. The daily grief he puts up with from the every direction, he's over a ton of stuff. The airport falls under him. All of our parks and rec stuff somehow bumps into him. And then he's got, 40 some odd fire, police, and EMTs, paramedic stuff, and dispatch and all that stuff. So I do not envy him at all. And I am completely happy where I'm at. One of the biggest perks of the position is as I can still go run calls with the guys. In fact, Mason stretched. I don't know if y'all get him up there. We had a cotton baler on fire, and it was off the roadway just enough, so they stretched the pre-connect to get to it. I get to get dressed. I still get to fight fire. when I'm close enough to be with them, still get to roll hose and mess with the guys. I occasionally still get in the back of the medic and do some skills. And so I would not have taken the position if it meant totally yard, point, right
Yeah,
at desk.
disconnecting. Yeah.
Yeah. And extremely thankful that the organization has that opportunity at our level still. Uh, our chief is a canine handler. He's in between dogs right now, but I'll come in the office at 2, 3 in the morning, see his vehicle, and he got called out for some sort of suspicious whatever, and was asked to run the dog. So we, at every level of our agency, we're still operators, and we're operationally driven, and that we were talking earlier about questions to ask in the interviews. I don't know that I could work for a place that didn't have an operational mindset at every level. Uh, Chief Ike hits it on the head. I mean, you see him, Mo, Clyde, those guys, Chief Reinwald, you see them up there close enough. They're definitely an IDLH at times.
Yeah.
And that's the only way to do it, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
I mean, I was going to ask you if you feel like you've noticed in your organization that being connected to the operation has made things better for everyone in terms of even the lowest, newest guy, blue shirt. Like, you're connected to him in that way still. Do you see?
And I think it provides that. Now we are looking as we get shifts in generations and stuff. We are getting to that point, and maybe we may be a little past it actually, to where because a normal assignment for us, by the way, is 4 to 5 people. Our second due companies, we're the only paid department in our county. Our second due companies are, if they are sitting in their stations, they are 15 minutes out. Definitely better than 10. If they're having to come from the house, it may be 20 minutes before you see another firefighter coming into the city. And so that's each shift has 4 assigned to it, and then each police card should have, if it's all set up right, at least 1 to 2 additional. Sometimes it's more. So it's the 5, 6 of y'all there for a hot minute. And that can be a long time, and so, but we're seeing that need as we, not transitional attack. We do that method, but to have somebody orchestrating it, we've had an influx of new hires, which is phenomenal and awesome. The majority of those are 25 years or less, or 25 years old or less. And so as we work with them and learn their styles and what they're comfortable with, that on-scene orchestration, is there and needs to be there. When I got hired on, 20 plus years ago, with the exception of the driver operator, which was usually the captain, he would do both roles. He would pump the truck and do stuff. We were all in, and you got as much done as you could do on that first bottle, engine work, truck work, search, whatever we were doing, and come back out and try to hot swap your bottles as quick as you could, because that 2 to 3 minute break changing tanks, that fire either took back off or we had a solid enough hit. We could talk about that all night too. We definitely, and not that it's encouraged, not that it's a lot of things, and there's a lot of places out there. I think there's more places than not that would say, yeah, this is how we actually fight fire and do calls. Every one of our assignments is a 1-person assignment. And if you have extra people to put on a hose line or put on a roof, great. But yesterday's fire mason stretched by himself. And it was outside, and we were in the middle of this field or on the outskirts of this field. But his rescue he made, the other backstep guy, they had 4 on. The other backstep guy stretched and started fighting the first floor apartment fire. Mason threw a ladder to the second floor rear on the Delta Charlie, and made the rescue, and had the patrol medic healing his ladder for him. And that. Yeah. But also, I will compliment my guys day in, day out, and gals. They train to that model, and And I'm very fortunate that the cadres I teach with, Valor Fire and Build Your Culture with Dave Mellon and Sean Duffy, we'll actually teach to that comfortability level. Because how many times have you gone to conferences or you've paid good money and it's great material? I'll never say it's not great material, but hey guys, we're going to roll up a 4-2 fashion. What's that? Well, 4 engines, 2 trucks, a battalion. We'll have a rescue. We're going to have 36 guys on scene, and there's guys there that it makes sense. Fantastic. But the majority of these guys coming to these conferences these days, hey, we're lucky to have 2 engines, or it may just be me showing up with, whatever that role is. I think one of the biggest things you should see in the American Fire Service is where they start putting on conference level classes, A-list material. Okay, here's how you do this. I know both with, like I say, with Sean and Dave, we have, and I call it 3-2 just you when I do the engine class. But it's not to me, it's not short staffed. It's realistically staffed. The NFPA unfunded mandate that we have X amount of personnel. I don't know who's cashing those checks other than they're writing a bunch of, when those guys go to, write new books to tell us how many people we should have on a line or who should have doing truck work in rescues and stuff like that. At the majority of our classes, we show you how one individual can do things. And so I have a very long rabbit hole.
No, I'm 100% with you on that rabbit hole. In fact, that's something that my organization's been really I'm in the training committee and I'm in our tactical committee, and we've been working to try to really sell that to people. And for generations in my department, people have thought, well, okay, we can't get the line done with 2 guys. Let's have the next engine show up, and now we're going to have 4 people on the line. Well, no one's searching when you're having those 2 people on the line. That's not good.
Exactly.
So, we're trying to change those things, and part of that is when we get new hires, we basically tell them, hey, you show up with 3, your officer does a 360, your engineer's doing engineer stuff, it's you. You need to be able to look at a building. You need to be able to make decisions. You need to be able to judge which line you're going to pull. You can't wait for your officer to come around the building and go, pull this line. It's just not feasible for most departments. I think the closest, you're talking about training, Bobby Eckert, he's got that class, and I did that 2 years ago at FDIC, and it was great. It was me and another guy for every class. For every evolution. It was just 2 of us just getting it done. And that's what every fire I've pretty much experienced. When I was early as a volunteer, we had a ton of people, but even when that started to dwindle down, it's you and an officer as a fireman, or it's you and your backstep as an officer. That's what you have. I'm with you. I think it needs to be taught way more.
No, absolutely. And Timothy Wood asked, Tim, I'm a 2nd-generation fireman.
Yeah, thank you.
And I've got it pulled up also.
Oh, perfect.
Well, and they're with that thought floating right over there. Golly, I was about to say something non-profound.
Was it?
Think about the physical agility. And I talk with people, and everybody out there in viewing world. One, your physical agility should mirror fireground processes. I've never had to swing a maul into a tire. I've never had to move a Kaiser sled. And if you look at the LA skip, where they skip the axe head up the roof line, okay, I would probably do that more than, now have I chopped a hole with an axe? I've made some holes with axes. But that 3.5 minute, and I've always been a 3.5 guy. All the physical agilities I took a jillion years ago now, I was right at 3.5 all the time. Why isn't that fireground applicable? And I go 2 ways with this. One, if the second after you hire me, everything I just did in the physical, and y'all think about this, everything I just did is a physical agility skill, with the exception of climbing the aerial ladder, I will now get written up for or get in trouble for doing by myself. I think physical agilities are total. I want my extra guy right then. Where's my buddy Where's 2 in, 2 out set up to help me do the physical? Because afterwards, it's all, I can't believe you searched by yourself. I can't believe you pulled the hose by all these things. But when you look at the practical skills application, with the exception of like extending the line and making a catch-all with tarps and pike poles, every skill is 90 seconds or less. And so realistically, when the truck goes in the park, I've stepped off the rig, however I'm dressed. I know I should be able to my drop point and masked up and ready to flow in under 90 seconds. I should be able to flow or throw every ladder up to including the 28s and 35s, either throw, suitcase carry, or drag into place and do those things. That's 90 seconds or less. I don't understand, and Ramagus not too long ago, he was talking about simultaneously doing these things. That's a realistic fireground. Single engine companies are the mainstay of the American Fire Service. They have been since we got horse-drawn carriages. And those guys and gals should be able to step off the truck, just like the guys did the other night. One guy stretched, one guy threw a ladder, the same guy made a rescue. We had a guy working the pump and we had a guy in command, and they got the fire. They had the fire knocked down in under 10 minutes. I mean, they were moving. Now the building construction had it pop out a few places. It got in a few chase ways. They had to go chase it a little bit, but from parking brake to done was less than 10 minutes with a 4-man engine. And then that was with, okay, they needed before the medic unit, all the stuff they're doing, EMS skills on the guy from the fire apartment, and then mom and infant. It's an active fireground. And how that's not the expectation in the American Fire Service. And where does IFSTA and Jones and Barton and all those other guys, that's the book I would read. But it's only got 1 or 2 pages. Do your damn job. And then back that up into, and still in Jacob Johnson's quote on that, do your damn job. Yeah. And, and Isaac Fraser, train. Instead of bitching, train. And goes back into things when, we looking at the questions and stuff, because I know these calls are going to happen, period. And it's not a what if. It's we know it's what it's going to happen. Now there are the magical calls out there, and the unicorn calls that, wow, okay, this actually might be an audible. Wow, this might actually be something we just don't even know because it's not something our organization does. And those should be those such hard stop moments to where you're like, okay, we've got to stop and make sure we sort this out real quick. But in that sorting it out, it should fall into some category real quick. And either run away or run towards. But that little tactical pause. And so anyways, yeah, as I ramble again.
No, you're not rambling, I promise. It's a great topic, and it's something I know that doesn't always get talked about in the right way, right? Of truly changing the way that we train and think for realistic fireground, which is really just a lot of people doing independent tasks.
Oh yeah,
completely alone. Like I didn't throw a 28 by myself until a couple years after I got out of the fire academy, and I got a, hey kid, come here and try this. It was never like in the context of, hey, you might be by yourself and you might have to do this.
Absolutely.
It got to a point.
And one of the things that's most valuable, it's not freelancing. Mm-mm. And you train to those things. You train to the opportunities that exist. If you are doing what logically comes next, stepping off the rig, and everybody's doing, and Sean, when you listen or if you're listening, you need to do, I'm going to say it, and if it all goes to like zero, we have to do risk assessment and survivability profiling. Those are the horrible words in the thing. And somebody posted the other day, it might have been Ramagus on Smoothbore Cartel or Engine Company Resurrection, one of those. talking about risk assessment, my risk assessment is now based on 51 years of seeing this job and over 20 of doing it. And I'm taking all those images and where the risky part is how long it takes me to line the things up. Okay, right here is survivable space, right here is collapsible space, right here is this. And gathering those things together and organizing them as quickly as possible, that's the only risky part for me. Because when I get through that evaluation and it sifts through, and that's a good way to look at it, that panning for gold, okay, when it sifts through those little holes and big holes, I need to be left with a percentage. And I'll tell you, and that's probably why, I've been very fortunate not to have to go to the hospital. Okay, wow. And I think back, and my wife's like, finish a sentence. If those of y'all that remember iRobot with Will Smith, and he talks about, the robot saved him and not the girl, and it was doing this risk assessment, and he makes a statement, a human would have known that was enough. When we used to teach VES, we didn't call it VES then in the early days. 1 minute targeted search, 1 minute, one location, one chance. You're going to get in that spot. And now we know the percentages thanks to Brush and Firefighter Rescue Survey and those other guys that are doing that fantastic work. We know through Don Abbott and Project Mayday. No, here's the actual data, not the drama. The drama needs to happen at the station, and I can't believe we're doing this shit. Oh my God, what do you mean you're going to get covered up in a fence? You know what? I was on a call. We had a call years ago at a post office in a city that north of us. The walls were made chicken wire covered in stuff. And as we were cutting through, thankfully we weren't hung up, but we all sat there going, holy crap, this is chicken wire. Man, we have the chance to get hung up in this. We'll add that to the layer. Let's be careful. And, I remember thinking earlier in life, a guy laid a fence over me to confine me. How dumb this was. Well, no, okay. Can I work in my space? As Rob Ramirez and Mayday Mindset talks about, can I work in that action area and leaving out of that? And I know we're going to talk about tools later. I didn't bring my gear in. You got to be comfortable in those zones that you're going to work in. And not that the other stuff's not going to happen. We have a major rail line that runs through the middle of our city or right next to the station. Through the west side of our city. We need to have a plan for that thing derailing in the city. Thankfully, it's come off the rails either side of us by a couple of miles. And not that we haven't gone to it, but, okay, what is the plan other than, we're going to be wiped out and have those things. We have over 30 miles of major interstate highway. Okay, we need to have that plan, and we do have that plan. We exercise it routinely. And so those things are the mainstay and should be the mainstay. One of the training failures and jumping around and the stuff, one of the training failures we get into, we want to train for the most crazy what if. And when you look at your critical action reviews and you look at the things that are just guys are griping about, it's the routine daily stuff that they're missing. And we whitewash over that. Oh, don't worry. You'll get it next time. You'll get it this. And some houses are lucky. We've been on a stretch the last couple of weeks. We're a city that does 15 to 20 good working fires a year. We've had 10 in the last, 60 days. 10, 12, 13. And that's just structure fires. 7, 8, 10 with rescues, with other, exposure issues, a ton of vehicle fires. The guys are getting in solid, good engine work. And it's awesome because you see them now. Okay, they were immediately able to go back out, correct it, or add to it. Because sometimes you add two mistakes. You don't get to go through complete processes, which is a training fallacy. Any guys that are trainers out there, let your guys go through it, get to completion. Determine what completion looks like and let them get to that and then catalog those mistakes. So many times going back to physical agilities, and I guys at home, I know I'm bouncing. Uh, Back to physical agilities, I always hated the ones when you got to a failure point, they just stopped you. Whoops, sorry, you dropped the mannequin. Blah, blah, blah. I've brought people out, not a lot. I've been a part of groups. Uh, the lady the other night with Mason was happy to get out of the upstairs building because it was full of smoke. And that's not a failure point. We actually changed our physical agility years ago. You will complete it unless you just physically stop and say, I'm done. You will complete our physical agility. Now, obviously, if we have to help you with any portion, okay, you need to come back. It needs to be you totally completing, totally on your merit finishing. But no, you've got to know what completed looks like. You've got to make it to the end. And when you look back through, and I don't know what your testing process was, getting on the job, I tested I did the shotgun, man. I'm gonna throw a million applications out there and made it through these things. The sea of dejected people that had no idea other than they didn't make a time, they didn't make this, they didn't make that. No, that's a disservice to them. And from some very reputable fire departments, they didn't pull aside and say, hey, you know what? Here's our standard. And by the way, all of our guys meet the standard. Because I can look across the grinder there and go, there's no way that guy's doing what you're asking me to do. Which as I get older and fatter and everything else, I'm hoping I can still pass our physical agility and still do the job. And as you get to those moments on the fire ground, and wow, we only got one Saturday to do this. No, I'm going to invest in you because if you're hungry enough, you're going to go someplace else. And if you're hungry enough, you're going to go someplace. And if you're hungry enough, here's what completion looks like. And we saw such a success rate in the applicants we had that may not have made the final cut for whatever reason. But we also started taking them through the interview processes. Because, wow, how great is it that you finally jump through all these hoops, literally jump through all these hoops, and you say one boneheaded thing in your interview process that some jackwagon with a preconceived notion, oh, can't believe you said red. The kid's hungry. Hey, you can only give 100%. The last guy gave 112. We're going to hire. Okay, don't say that stuff. Make yourself unique. Go out of your comfort zone. And I love this about Jacob Johnson. He finds out those guys' stuff. And I'll tell this story on occasion. And I'm going to tell it right now. We had a young man. He was extraordinarily nervous. And we asked him, what do you actually do for a living right now? He's a waiter at a truck stop diner in far west Texas. Immediately switched. Tell us about difficult people. Man, he rambled. He just went off. Tell us about multitasking. Tell us about having to be dedicated under the worst conditions possible. Young man, you're exactly who we want. You just, do you have all the certs and the skills? And, we ended up not hiring him, but I bumped into his dad on a forestry deployment several years later. He recognized the shirt. Hey, y'all are from Hillsboro. Man, my son interviewed with y'all and tested with y'all. He was now on the job someplace else, but he said, man, y'all gave him such encouragement. We don't do those things as an industry. And we know the answers. The most important answer we know is that person wants it as bad as we do and as we did. And if we don't still want it that bad, if you don't want that guy to succeed in the interview as bad as they want to succeed, man, I would say, hey, man, we're hiring an extra spot because I probably need to leave. I want those people to want it, and I want it to want for them. Now, as I get older, yeah, I can only pour out so much want and love these days. It takes a lot more physically and mentally to recharge the batteries, not going to lie. But we bump them into young guys like Mason, and I saw Tanner on here, that are just totally on board and eat up with the job and talking about it. I'm so happy they're on here. Those guys, they come in and they talk about things. Hey, have you seen this, seen that? I'm like, some days I give them a hard time, explain this to me. And they're like, or hey, you like that? man, you're going to love this, and let's add to their knowledge base,
Yeah,
but anyway.
you shouldn't pump somebody's brakes, right? I'm with you. We got a couple young guys that have rubbed people the wrong way, and like it just doesn't. Oh, because he's involved and he's into this and he talks about the job and he's passionate about. Like, do you just want someone that doesn't want to be a firefighter come and be here? Like, what do
Exactly.
you want out of the kid? Like, he's into it. Like, would you rather have when I was testing? I mean, it was a large volume of people.
Yep.
And yes, there were people in that group that were chasing a pension or they were chasing.
Yeah.
It happens, but right now, the current state of uh, like recruitment net, I don't think there's a single person that takes a fire test right now. And I know it's probably a bold absolute, but I truly don't think there's a single person that applies for a fire department tests that does not want to do it. Like,
Oh,
at a bare
100%.
minimum, you have that.
And I'm glad we've gotten back to that, even though the numbers have dwindled greatly. Yeah, the people that are showing up, they're dialed in, and they're, I won't say misguided. The ones we get that have come from other places, obviously have a little bit better idea. Uh, it would be awesome if the academies caught up with that, because I think they're still allowing, and in Texas, when it started going to the college process, and almost everything is somehow involved with it, some sort of institution, it's a numbers game. And if you don't have 10, 12, 15, whatever the number they need to make the class, so they're allowing some people in to get a course completion that may not ever make the job. And but you see it across multiple industries. I mean, there's plenty of people that get into the welding class or get into an HVAC class that are never going to get that job, but the school needs them in there for numbers.
Yeah.
And I think, one of the things, and I'm not confident how we do it, because we're up against deep pockets. Uh, and it's very unfortunate that it's that way. And I totally get it that a college cannot have, and I'm going to be careful the way I say this, the environment that the majority of us went through academy in was rough. And those guys, like most of my instructors, were salty guys, had been a part of bad calls, good calls, all kinds of things, and they brought that layer of salt to us, and they sugarcoated the things they had to. Nobody could be MF'd and this, that, and the other. I mean, there was a feelings committee, somewhere in the university side of the school I went to, but they also didn't sugarcoat. Hey, this is what the job's. This is as close as we can tell you that it's going to be. And what we talked about this earlier. Talking about what we signed up for. They also weren't afraid to tell us some of the bad stuff. And hey, there are days this job is as the best job on earth. There are days and moments that it's going to suck. And when you're in that valley, it can seem insurmountable. But that's where you look left and right, and I'm so thankful for this, because I had guys that were my academy instructors that had been through line of duty deaths and had been through horrible calls and career ending stuff. Was lucky my dad, had been through things like that too. They taught us how to work in zero vis, and not only physically, but mentally. And when you're in that just no light situation, it's dark and you're crashed in, the waves are hitting you, how to orient yourself, how to start looking for your mate, to take those deep breaths, how to just calm yourself down. And I've been very fortunate. And there's guys from our class that, didn't continue their career, and they've already checked, they've done other things. We lost a guy a couple of years ago from my class due to occupational cancer. But the majority of the guys that I graduated Fire Academy with have mentally held it together. And when you mentioned Next Rung earlier, and Blake Stinnett and Dina and Rick George and them, they'll tell you, we've got to learn we got to remember that we know how to work in zero viz. And it's the same mentally. Man, orient yourself, find your buddy, check your air status, and you go through. I'm not going to say anything crazy like go through your lunar or all that kind of stuff, but and remember, the majority of times you are able to rescue yourself, or somebody's close enough to you, and the data shows it. Somebody's there in that issue with you that can help you. And then occasionally, yes, the RIT team, activate that RIT team, activate your employee assistance programs, activate, churches and individual counseling, activate things like Next Rung, the Florian Society out of Chicago and those things. And, because I won't say his name, I pray for him all the time and lift him up. I had a buddy of mine, when I reached out and said, oh my gosh, what's going on? He was so inebriated, he simply couldn't find the trigger. And I just sit there heartbroken. Because, this is one of my mates. Somebody that I've spent, just countless time with. And, hey, wow, how'd you get to there? And he's like, man, I finally started just clawing my way out of this situation and got to those levels of help. And, and that's our next great battle. And I'm a part of a lot of things and a lot of things nationally that I'm very fortunate to be a part of. And I'm so glad we're all addressing that. And, the real scars that are there. So, anyways.
Yeah. You could be tough. You could be all of those things that we are as firefighters. You could be all that and still take care of yourself. It doesn't have to be, one or the other. I'm with you all day. And Timothy Wood, it's not to scrap Timothy Wood, but yes, max points.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
I'm gonna kind of.
Yeah, that's.
I want and if it is your father, that's cool. If it's not, I really like. So I don't know if you've listened to other parts where I've asked this question, but I really like to ask. Somebody that's influenced you early in your career. We all don't get an opportunity. Sometimes somebody comes in and then they really put you in the right direction. They leave, and you maybe never get to acknowledge them. Or just in general, who influenced you the most early on in your career?
So obviously my dad had the largest influence because there was things he just said in passing, and serious moments, and line of duty deaths, and he would come in and just say things to me. But when I made the decision to get on the job, there was a group of guys, and some of them I won't name, but and when I do my lectures and stuff, I don't name them there either. But I had people that absolutely hated me, and for the reasons you mentioned, I was loud. I was hard charging. Hey, why are we doing the hose load this way? Have y'all seen these other 25 ways? And I hadn't developed a tact or a finesse, and some would argue that I still haven't. Because remember, it may work someplace, and it may be working some places, and it may not work for your agency. And that's where I've kept butting heads. Hey, have we tried this? Have we tried that? How we were doing it, and some things we've still done for since 1885 when the department formed, they still work in our district. And so, but one of my first captains, Chad Murray, he would have honest conversations with us. And now, as he was real with us and things, and such a great tactician and a master of the craft, he wanted to know the whys. And generally, when he told us something, it's because he had lived it out in his fire service career. But some of the biggest people that had an influence on me early on were extraordinarily negative. But I took those things they told me, and I coupled that with the fact that they were giving me their time, that most precious commodity. Because they could have just bypassed me. Oh, that guy, whatever. All we got to do is work with him for 24 hours, and he'll be, I picked up an overtime shift. Oh, my God, we're working with Pruitt. hey, we don't like the way you do this. And occasionally I'd be mouthing up, hey, will you show me the better way to do it? Because although I'm 30 years old, I'm 35 years old, I'm 50 years old, show me. I'm not afraid to learn. And so those guys that did those things, and I had a guy crazy early on. He pulled me aside and he said, you know what? I realized something. You love this job as much as I do, just different. And it didn't make sense then, but as it washed over me, wow, you know what, you're right. And now as I bump into guys and gals in the past 2 decades, you can see that love for it. You can see that spark. You can see the passion and the routes that they're wanting to go. Okay, great, it's different than me. And I wish I could remember the author, reward your boundary breakers as much as your boundary makers. They are the ones that are setting your path. I need young guys like Mason and Hunter and Tanner and Dalton as much as the senior guys, in my department, John, Scott, Danny, Adrian. I need them to push as much as they dig their feet in. And most importantly, I need us to have the adult conversation or the kids conversation. Hey, why are you digging your heels in here? Well, you know what? This is important to us. You're raising 2 kids. Your 1-year-old even is at the point when they dig their heels in, it's for a reason. And now some days it may be just insanely crazy, but they don't want and they don't know how to express it. We're not known communicators. Those guys out there, I had a guy tell me once, I'm like, hey, I don't really know anything about this subject. He said, but you'll sound great not knowing what you're talking about. I'm like, okay, I'm there. Saturday, let's go. Don't confuse the way my voice sounds with the intellect. Okay, I may say stuff. I am going to say some of the dumbest stuff y'all have ever heard. But I'm not afraid to maybe say one of the smarter things if it creates the conversation. And so those people that influenced me, the risk takers, definitely. The guys that weren't afraid to step out, and I was able to look and watch, okay, wow. Because, we're all looking for a way out of this, whether we realize it or not. Where we're whole up, and if you look at your career as your air tank, man, you're using it up. When you're stationary, you're not making progress. We're not holding some defensive line by not growing and moving. Man, let's go over here and search this. Let's go over here and look at this. Some things we do need to take a defensive stand on. Some things we need to transition. Hey, guys, we're going to start here knowing that the goal is to end up here. And you learn things in that journey. One of the biggest things, talking about transitional attack, if I know pulling up on scene that I'm going to do a transitional attack, I am more likely to pull both hose lines. One to where I know I'm going to start fighting fire, and one to where I know I'm going to probably make entry. Because for me personally, now those y'all that got it figured out, great. I'm going to have difficulty moving and resetting the line properly to make a good entrance, or I could set them both up for a win. And once again, we talked about earlier, it should take less than 90 seconds for both of those to do that. My AO charges the lines, whatever. I'm just now walking. Most days I've got walking figured out. Our photographer has pictures that show otherwise. She has a whole folder full of pictures of me just falling on fire scenes. But, that influence. Captain Peacock told me one night on the way to a fire, he literally reached over and patted me as I'm 3 a.m. Hillsboro's like completely shut down. Nobody's out, after 10 o'clock at night back then. He just kind of taps me. Says, hey, buddy, it'll be burning when we get there. Now, of course, I just had an aneurysm, and it's like, but he was right. And we got there fast. There wasn't a single thing, him stopping for a second just to make sure the one random person that's up at 3 a.m. is not going to sideswipe the rig. And he was right. So those small little subtle things, and I had a guy, and I'll definitely say Jim Faulkner, guy's such a phenomenal resource to the American Fire Service and all the roles he's had and the organizations that he's worked with and for. He looked over there, and a guy had said something to me at a burn that just grated my cheese. And I was like, man, if he's blah, 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 blah. And Jim just looked at me and said, hey, when you feel like it's your last straw, come to me. I've got a handful of straws for you. And I was like, because it made so much sense. It was like, he was right. I wasn't near. I was just, okay, let me vent. All right, thank you. He was actually right. The influencers these days and over the years, when they're right, it's simply right. Why do we argue right? Other than the fact that we want to. The floor's dirty. Hey, you're right. Let's get on that. Hey, it did take 10 minutes to get to the call. You're right. Now, do we need to defend wrong? When both sides? It all depends. I've never been able to convince a citizen that they weren't right. There was no value in me showing them that they were wrong. In other words, they misunderstanding. Is it their emergency? Absolutely. I've stood in the front of my yard with emergency going on. We're looking at the clock on my watch going, okay, wow, get here quicker. And I look down, okay, hang on, it takes this long for X to get to here, this long for there. No, they got here. So anyways, yeah, the influencers, I can't say enough, he's passed. Captain Crimmins was the captain at the house my dad retired out of. Cap was one of the most amazingly influential and just knowledgeable dudes. And I saw there's a couple of, at least one or two Arlington guys on. That guy, when he spoke, it was just gold. I mean, he was, and it may not have been applicable. There's definitely some things I laughed at as a young man that, the battalion chiefs and the stuff like that, the guys that became battalion chiefs and stuff like that, major officers in the department, it's like, oh yeah, that probably wasn't funny for the other guy. But man, when he said things that 5, 10, 30 plus years of experience of doing this, and ghetto firefighting, you look for those guys, and then, like I said, the names I mentioned earlier, man, I crave being around young firefighters because they don't know how to not influence. I mean, their forward progression leaves such a wake that, man, golly, it's just pouring knowledge out that they don't even know just through their effort, their abilities, their want. So, yeah, I don't know that I answered it all.
No, you did. You did. I love it. So one of the reasons why we connected for other reasons, but I know that Corley was reaching out for sound bites, right? And I had mentioned your episode with him when he would ask his 5 questions for firefighters and the single trait. And you more or less alluded to being a servant, to being in service of other people, and that message, like it obviously really resonated. And obviously you don't need to copy what you said, but let's just talk about what that really means about service to others, being a public servant, because that's what we are.
Well, absolutely. So, and I know I said then, and I'll say it, my dad never taught me how to be a fireman. Never taught me how to be a chief. He never was. In one of his departments, he held the rank of lieutenant. But in Arlington, he was a backstep and he was a chief's aide. He showed me how to serve, and especially the small town we grew up in. It's not so small anymore, but there were just the opportunities, and it was a combination department. So the fire department was doing everything. The church was doing everything, the high school, there was just these opportunities. So I grew up, you went to things, and you went to things on purpose because you were helping either people for whatever reason. And you were as apt to be in a wealthy neighborhood helping as you were in a poor neighborhood and those things. And my wife, I told you, I asked her all the questions to see what she said. We were driving home a couple of weeks ago from church, or on our way to church. We noticed it gets windy here in North Texas. A tree limb had blown over in these people's yard, and it was a sizable limb. Uh, and I told her, I said, "Hey, if it's not there, if it's already gone when we get home, great. If it's not, we're going to walk over and we'll cut this tree up for this couple." Sure enough, as we pull back in the neighborhood, tree limbs there. Hey, boys, let's come over here. Both my teenage sons. Uh, we cut this limb up for them, and at least in the chunkable pieces, the sidewalk was back open. The street wasn't as blocked as it was. Uh, our profession, and this is where, and this would be some of the repeat. I don't get people that don't understand that they're helping others. Now, is there ridiculous categories? Absolutely. And the majority of them apply to the EMS side of what we do. Most people, I don't know what they teach in high school health anymore, but most of the medicals I've run in 2 decades have been people just experiencing life to some sort of effect, and needed Walgreens or needed a clinic, didn't necessarily need emergency pre-hospital care provided to them, but they needed a voice. They needed educated. They needed somebody. When you hear these stories about people, they just needed somebody to talk to. In some cases, and I get it. The game's on. I get it. We left food on the table. This, that, and the other. What am I out 5 minutes most days? Hey, how is it going? Especially I think now more than ever, because we are just at the cusp again of what the COVID mental health problem has done to the generation that survived. And when I said generation, I think it's all ages. I mean, we're talking, 5 to 90 that lived through that lost through that every emotion imaginable. The majority of us kept going to work. Unless you just got it and were off for whatever amount of time. Obviously, there's people that knew people that got sick and died, or got sick and had to leave the profession. But the majority of us in the fire profession, the EMS profession, we kept going to work. Our job did not stop. There was no at-home Zoom call for me to go run fires and medicals. But as we get these opportunities to serve, and I think it takes on so many different areas in our jobs. It's a must for me. It's almost like I feel days that's what I was programmed for. And obviously be careful with stuff and things. I don't think we should be pulling over for every person that's on the side of the road. There's just some safety concerns out there. But I think, if we're in the engine, if we're in the medic unit and stuff like that, to me, I think the majority of the waters in our coolers are for those people. And we get it, and I don't know how it is up there where you're at. I mean, especially here in Texas, we have a sea organizations bringing us waters and Gatorades all the time. I mean, we just do. Hey, it's hot. Hey, it's this. We drove around in the Polaris one day. Just anybody we saw walking, hey, where are you going to? Hop in, put a seatbelt on. We'll drive you over there real quick. It's 1,000,000 degrees in Texas, by the way. And we put a little tarp in the back and loaded it down with ice waters and Gatorades. Here, have a water real quick. Take 2 with you. That servant attitude. It's crazy to me in fire academies that we'll spend a week on fire prevention and totally gloss and not even approach the fact, hey, let's spend that week on fire prevention showing you how to do an appropriate pub ed for the elementary school, or showing you, hey, you're going to walk through the grocery store. You just spent 3 weeks at the gym building these muscles. Help Mrs. Smith with the dog food. Do these things, help out, be publicly minded. And I think if we were to do those things even just a little bit, when it comes time to vote, when it comes time to ask for things, hey, those are the guys that helped us. You know, we see the outreach that our brothers and sisters in blue are doing. You know, Coffee with the Cop and some of the other programs they do, the National Night Out stuff. Uh, we've got given a golden ticket. You know, there are some Norman Rockwell paintings out there of police officers doing things, but we have that iconic out there polishing the bell, you know, sliding the pole. We actually have a Dalmatian at our station. You know, he'll sit out in the front apron and people just stop by to see that dude most days to just say, hey, we are here unashamedly here. Now that leads the counterbalance to this, and I talk about this at places. I think we've branded ourselves. Well, and I don't care if this rubs anybody wrong. Have the conversation. Prove me wrong. Those of y'all that live in Arlington, don't come find me. I don't think we meant what we said when we told y'all, the public, to call us for everything. Because I bump into guys and gals that don't want to change smoke detector batteries, that don't want to go over there and rake up the last little bit of leaves, that don't want on that EMS call to spend that extra couple of minutes knowing full well if they just make that pathway a little wider. Now, they want to bitch and gripe all day long that we're stumbling through it with the stretcher or the stair chair, the bag, the whatever. Hey, even in a small place like us, hey, y'all go ahead and transport. We'll meet you there. Hey, sir, we're going to help you with this pathway a little bit. Either from the driveway to the house or inside the house, because it fits that wheelchair now, or it fits that pathway in the cane. It fits the war hero, and I don't say that lightly at all, that has an amputation or has. We've got to come to grips with the fact that we're going to have the most injuries we've had since World War II and Vietnam, that as they age, and hopefully our government steps up and continues to provide and takes on that role for these young men and women that have been catastrophically life-altering injured overseas protecting our freedoms. It may be that engine crew or my two young guys doing just out checking hydrants. Hey, let us help you with this real quick. If we adjust this now, we know that's going to benefit us later. My wife said this earlier. We're one of the few professions at the end of every shift, if you cannot say you made somebody's life better, there's an unchecked box on the to-do list. That should be written in permanent ink on every board in the building, in every firehouse in the U.S., every EMS company, every police officer's vehicle. I will intentionally do something to make somebody's life better. And it doesn't take money. Sometimes it can. It simply takes time, kindness, thoughtfulness, initiative, and and like I say, that's the life my dad lived. And he's still alive. He's living it. As I told you, to date, outside of maybe some gas money, he gives his time. One of these days, Old Faithful's not going to spout up. One of these days, supposedly. But like clockwork, we should be dependable that they know they can expect help and guidance and service. And the things that we can't do, okay, we need to let people know that. I wrote that on the board years ago. Can't, won't, don't, shouldn't, couldn't, wouldn't. And the guy, like at my agency, we do not do hazmat mitigation. We have outside, we have third party, or Waco comes up. Now we can stand there and go, wow, that looks really bad, with the best of them. Pull out the binoculars. We got the ERGs and all the little apps and stuff. There's things that we shouldn't do. And I think as a fire service, as an industry, we need to get into the habit of doing the things we say we can do. We got to be able to do those really well and better than most. It is spectacular that citizens are making rescues. I love seeing the videos And it breaks my heart when I see a truck going to park and people, their risk assessment, they've got all the training, they've got all the stuff. You could stack the paper a mile high and they check up at the front door. And there's a citizen that climbed up an AC unit into the deal and broke the window and gets 2 kids out. And that guy, I mean, it's probably, if we followed him, where's the inference report that's going to track the injuries he sustained? You know, and quite honestly, I don't care what that guy's background is. Come to Hillsborough. We need to hire you because you've got this figured out.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yep. When it's time to act, you know how to act.
Yeah.
And, you know, honestly, that should be the physical agility at any fire department. Hey, we have a service opportunity. What are you going to do? And that may be stretching a hose to put out a dumpster. That may be 2 or 3 shopping carts that are in, because unless you park up on the fire lane, if you do that, great. I'm not saying anything against it. Let people know why you're there. Don't beat your chest.
Yeah.
Don't beat your chest and tell people, well, we're here. That way when we catch an emergency, and then they see you loafing at the station or they see you loafing other places. No. If you're going to be ready to answer the call by parking in the fire lane in the front of a business, your shoot times better also be spectacular. And you're running to the rig getting dressed. You're treating it because it's an emergency. Oh, it's just an automatic fire alarm. No, there's plenty of parking lots now from where it was just an automatic fire alarm. There's plenty of light smoke showing that when they finally looked, man, they had a ripping good fire. And, you know, so that I don't know, I'm rambling again.
I'm telling you, it's all, I don't even, rambling almost devalues it. It's not rambling, I promise you. It's all great stuff. I mean, you're getting, you can see the comments, you know that. So Timothy Wood brought up, you know, shoveling sidewalks up north. We're in the same boat. We drive around with a shovel all day long in the engine and actually in the ambulance because we're a jump company. But Joshua Everett says he's not rambling, he's preaching, 100%. Yeah.
Thanks, Josh.
Chief Riley has a pretty large comment here, and I kind of wanted to touch on that. So it's shouldn't we as senior members and leaders not be asking the younger members what their why is? I think sometimes people come to this service and they don't understand this, and if we don't help them to understand this, then they might not ever get it. And you're totally right, Chief. Like, yes, we love to say this that the next generation wants to know why, right? And I'm glad that the fire service has bought into this, and Simon Sinek and all of that belief, right? It's totally the truth. And you were kind of talking about fire academies and all that. I think that if that doesn't happen in the fire academy, then it needs to happen when you get hired, right? Is understanding their why and then explaining our why of why we exist and why we do what we do as an organization or as a fire service as a you know, I don't know what your thoughts were on that, about how you know, sell that, or maybe not sell it, but explain it.
Well, no, I think we're a business also. We sell a product, you know, and we're in the outdoor sales business. We're in the one-time only sales business. I think it was the young man I listened to on one of your other podcasts. We're going to find out all too late some places that people did have a choice. And they have a choice every time they vote, you know, especially with the cost going up on everything. So us being able to explain our why, and I think those are good. I think they can be dangerous if you have too many people involved initially. But sitting down with your senior staff and making sure they still understand why. Because trust me, coming into an organization, we're not a crazy old fire department. Hook and Ladder 1, 1863, formed with Hose Company 1 in 1865. There's stuff that we've done for, you know, the 20 years I've been there that we did the 20 before that and the 20 before that. I think we should have those bread and butter moments. Hey, do we know why we're using the hose load we use? Do we know why we're switching this to this? You know, I listened to a low pressure, high pressure thing the other day with one of my guys who was, and he kind of looked over and he did not change his stance on smooth bore versus fog. But he's like, man, that makes a lot of sense as to why we're having some of the issues with some of our hose packaging. So those why moments, I think what we get as we start establishing our lanes as senior people, and we all do it. Uh, I get mad when Kroger changes something. Man, it used to be over here. Why'd they put it over there? You know what? Kroger probably has some guy or gal that's making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year that says, you know what? If we put this right here, this effect will be achieved. I'm just mad that I've got to now search around for something. If we embrace this stuff and have the conversations, we'll be amazed how much time we save. It's through those conversations. And we had a guy years ago, he was on another shift than ours. The shift was kind of shit assing him at the deal. And they're like, what was going on? Man, he was just out there in the bay. We found him over by the mop sweep mall or wall. The outside part of our bay has a wash station and this, that, and the other. Man, he was just sitting there, didn't even know what to do. And I won't have any epiphany. I won't, it bounced right then. I probably laughed. But I remember sitting there thinking, hang on, y'all didn't show him. Here's why we do this in the sequence and the order we do the things we do. We've had people mop the floor before they sweep it. And we sit there and laugh at them. We sit there and, no, okay, let's show you the process. And I know that may be funny to some people. We get people that don't know how to even work a mop. They leave the eyebrow or whatever they're doing. It's not all fire and EMS call related. And then why our organization exists. So you'd be amazed people that don't know why they even have a job in some of their stuff. And some of them are from some pretty bellwether events. I won't say where. Their department was going paid from volunteer. They had a horrible fatality fire, and they needed people there 24 hours a day in case this event happened again. Sometimes it's things like that. So, I think Chief Riley and he and I are great friends. Hope to see him here in a couple of weeks in Wichita. And I think, as I just gave some long drawn out answer, I don't think it has to be anything crazy. Hey, here's why we carry this hose load. We have switched. We've always carried a Minuteman load since I've been there. We have debris-ridden laneways up to most of our structures. We don't do a whole lot of second story or third story stuff, thank goodness. But that hose load, the compactness and the ability to take that load pretty much anywhere at a moment's notice while it's still bundled fits us well. We have shiplap ceilings. Here's my shout out for Char Fire Tools and for Gen 2 pike poles with Casey Towery. Look both those up. If you have difficult ceilings, tongue and groove like I've got, or plaster and lathe, man, those two tools are aces for opening that stuff up. And people ask us all the time, why do you have this? Man, this tool's heavy. This tool's this. You're not going through shiplap ceiling with just a normal, run-of-the-mill gaffer's hook from, the 1800s. You need something like that, or a Lockwood, or even a Malvin, something along those lines, something with weight that's going to break those boards and then pull those boards down so you can chase that vertical fire spread. So something as simple as that, the whys. And then some days the best why is because it works.
Yeah. Tried and true, right?
Absolutely. Like I said earlier, working, does it work for us? And so.
Yeah, Chief Riley had a follow-up too. He said we're good at teaching how to do a task, but we suck at teaching people to make good decisions. And that was kind of what we were talking about earlier, right? Is you go through the fire academy and you're probably with a company of 4 people. So you got 4 people now that are all making, a stretch together, and they're told exactly where to go, and they're told exactly to do this, and, meet these check marks and objectives, and you're done.
Yep.
And then they show up, on fire scenes, and they stand in the front yard with a pike pole waiting to be told what to do. Like, it's a direct translation, and it's something that needs to be tweaked along the way somewhere back, like exactly like we were talking about before.
chasing this for a second, and I think Chief will laugh because almost all the places I teach truck work, and I do a lot of live fire stuff. Obviously, I love teaching hose stuff. One of the biggest fallacies of fire academies is you get individuals, the great hearts, great. I won't say they're. I've only met one or two instructors that are there. I don't even know why they're there because it doesn't pay enough to have it be a paycheck. Most places. I could care less what hose load they teach. They've got this list of things. We got to do this, this, this. I got to show you this 6 hose loads in a couple of days' time. And then if you think back to yours, I'm thinking back to mine right now, and they're yelling at us the whole time. Everything we were doing wrong was at the rig somehow. When I teach hose loads and I teach streams, it's at the end. Here's what a good deployment of whatever hose load. You could unroll it and coupling it, lengths at a time. You need to have your nozzle and your lead length. Your lead length needs to be able to reach the furthest point that you know you're going to go to in a normal structure. The majority of mine, it's not even 50 feet. So if we have the coupling at the door, we're gold, left or right. And that's the majority of the American Fire Service. If I show them that and then their dump piece or whatever they're doing with the rest of their load, whether it's a Minuteman, a triple, a flat, like I say, rolling it, a Lexington Courtyard, whatever they're doing, they have that done. I had a friend tell me the other day, he's like, hey, I want you to evaluate something. So maybe we're getting shitty flow out of the nozzle. Now, we stretched it bad. I was like, okay, the conversation's over. You stretched it. No, do this. He's like, oh, yeah, crap. I show them that. No matter how they leave the truck, if they know the end goal is to have coupling and nozzle at the door to clear their lead length and then have everything else flaked out properly, it doesn't matter what's on the truck. And we teach it backwards. And I came to that realization after one of the times going through Swift Water. Have you been through Swift Water at all?
No.
Okay. So if you get to go through it, it's a fantastic class if you like to swim. They will start off, almost every one of them does this. The first 6 to 8 hours of your class is them scaring you to death. Do not go in the water. Reach, throw, row, go. In that order, and do not get in the water. Do not get in the water. And then the last 40 some odd hours of your class is nothing but being in the water. I think it should be taught backwards. You should leave that class scared to death. And you should have pause. Man, that water, because water will kill you quick. And then it's kind of, oh yeah, water. Let's go to the amusement park. Hey, what do you remember about the safety speech? Nothing. We rode roller coasters the whole time. We need to show people. We show people all these tools, but no practical application of how to use them. Outside of vehicle extrication, which is really in most districts an extraordinarily small percentage of your call volume. No, you need to know how to work a hook. You should not have to go to FDIC with Chiampo and Sam Hiddle and those guys. Fantastic class if you get to go and get an acquired structure where he's showing you how to work a hook. No, man, call up your local place. Find these acquired structures. Your fire academy, if my thousands of dollars is going to go to anything, it should not be fire prevention. It should be to a roof prop, a ceiling prop that buys nothing but decking and sheetrock. So I can, when they are tailboard with you, hey, do you know how to do this? Yes, sir. Okay, show me real quick your movements. Side note, when I clean the bay windows, I do it in a hook motion as I'm scrubbing the windows. It's one more rep for 5 bay doors. And going through that process, and as I shorten it down, okay, I've got my 4-foot hook, I've got a 6-foot hook. We carry 12-foot still, and I still suck at 12-foot, cleaning the windows and pulling gables. So anyway, Chief's absolutely right, and like I say, I hope anybody going to Wichita hot, if Chief's there, I'll definitely be there. We're at Dan Mishler's group, doing whatever we're doing with Dan.
Awesome little segue into that too. But yeah, I totally agree. When we don't really establish those things early enough, I think people have this almost reset after a couple years into their career where they kind of look around and go, what the hell was I taught in the fire academy?
Oh, absolutely.
Like we just had a local, a bunch of departments got together. We did like live fire training in some burn cans, right? And I am not knocking this. I get it because I've been on both sides as a student and as the stoker. So maybe there's a better way, and we'll kind of segue into some of that. Kind of
Yeah.
one of my other questions. It wasn't quite this, but I watched the two guys, young guys in their early 20s, get off the rig, make a great stretch, split the door, racked the hose right, did everything right, turn around, charged it, and then they just took off running, right? And they were up at the barrel, touched the barrel, and then opened the line. And I was like, hey, listen, guys, I get it, okay? I know that nobody's ever really probably taught you a different way other than just run your ass off. And someone was probably yelling at you the entire time in the fire academy that you're going too slow and all these other things, right?
Yep.
I'm like, you gotta have water in your hand. Like, you just went through a whole bunch of smoke, and I didn't see you open it once. Like, I'm not saying you're doing anything wrong necessarily, but you need to really think about what you have in your hands. And I was like, I was just as guilty of it. The first couple fires that I went on out of the fire academy, it was bull and bum rush through everything, right? To then hug the fire and then open the line and put it out. And now, we're finding so much more that it makes more sense to. I mean, if you listen to Ramagus talk for 5 minutes, or even oh my God, I shouldn't draw a blank on his name. Seattle. Oh my God.
Aaron.
Aaron. I'm literally taking his class again in a couple weeks. But or any of his cadre, Aaron Fields' cadre, like they all talk the same thing about making space, maintaining space, all that. Like, there's nothing in a fire academy that teaches you that other than you better move as fast as possible to get to the fire prop or whatever it might be. It doesn't teach anything else.
So as we program people, and I told you we got a brand new guy starting tomorrow, and one of the things, and I do my best. I fail at it miserably, but I do my best. I've got fantastic staff. They know what they're doing, meeting the objectives. I do a lecture called "Everything's a Fire," and I try to incorporate it in everything. To me, every call I go on is a fire call. Period. I don't think we are an EMS company that runs fires. We're a fire department that occasionally takes people to the hospital. When you walk into the building, we've got to program and reprogram. Think how many times your phone does an update. Once again, it's hilarious that somebody's probably making hundreds of thousands of dollars to say, hey, you know what? This is great. This is fantastic. Work conference, by the way, Austin, Texas. Supposed to keep Lone Star Fools. To say, hey, we need to update this. And most times what they're doing is fixing a speed issue. But Ian Bennett out of Seattle, the context clues that we've got to have. And when you think back to your fire academy, very seldom does any training. I don't like doing multi-company drills, especially with live fire, because it's hard to get all the context clues just right for engine, truck, and search, command, whatever all you're adding together. It's hard to get the appropriate context clues at the right times. But as a good engine person, how about tomorrow when this young guy walks into our station, as he makes the back door, hey, we're about to enter a structure. Let's do a real quick live fire layout. And when somebody in the department says, why? Well, it's an exit pathway. And we know, and I'm not a numbers person at all, but we know the majority of our people are found making their way to an exit. Great. The 6 months this young man's on probation, if every time he gets to an exit door, he gets down real quick, he checks it, he secures it, he does whatever he's going to do in that moment, we add things to it. We get so lost on the basic skills to continue to build those things. And that's another thing that I was very fortunate in my fire academy. Most days above the doorway or at the ridge line of whatever building we were going into, they had a color or a number. And if somewhere in the process of them trying to wipe us out, They would ask you what color number, was it a zebra or a cow, whatever they had up there. And now, if you couldn't answer, yeah, there was hell to pay. You know, we were out running or doing whatever we were doing. But man, it taught us to start looking at those pertinent things, you know, windows and door jams. And so let's say we do this with this young guy for several weeks, several months. And then we actually have a doll there. We have a human there. We have a victim. And then and I heard this a year or two ago, and man, it made sense. And wow, the mental pause. Which way is the victim aiming? Wow. Is that mom aiming back in? Is that female aiming back into the structure because she's going to get something? This wasn't a made it to the door and collapse. This was a started at the door, working their way in. And you then add in these context clues. When we, it's later on question, but it may be applicable all throughout the thing. 1403 is a guideline for safety. And it doesn't mean it's going to be safe, but it's a guideline for safety. And when we look at how to do burns, and your question was, how do we do 1403 training with your on-duty staff with a single engine, 3-4 guys, maybe a double company house. And what I tell people year round is it doesn't always take fire. It takes accurate positioning, which most days, back to Fire Academy, back to most trainings, hey, do it like this and hold it like this. Hey, we're going to duck walk 100 feet with the hose flowing. Holy crap, when? Over 20 years of fighting fire, and I make no bones about it, I've been able to walk to most fires. And you were talking about, racing to the stuff. Hey, duck in real quick, stop for that second, listen. And then you as whatever you are in your department, or having because you can do all these things with your phones now and all this stuff we weren't able to do back in the day. We could pull up our mask and be over there in the corner coughing, to make those sounds and stuff. Man, you can make it be anything. It doesn't always have to be a victim. Hell, do you hear the propane tank leaking? That's a very distinct sound. That is life altering. I was so proud. My son went with me up to Oklahoma City a couple of months ago. And when he came out, he was talking about it being chaotic and this and that. And he's like, man, the sounds were this. And he described 2 or 3 sounds. And I was beaming. I was smiling so big. He's like, what? I was like, that means your heart rate had to be under 150, 160, 150. You, as chaotic as you thought it was, you kept your wits about you. You could hear things happening. I said, buddy, I've been, guys, 20, 30-year guys that go deaf as a post in the yard still. And you're having to shake them. Hey, we're going over here. Okay. Let alone the visual occlusion and the speech occlusion. You get a guy like myself talk up a storm, they get in a fire, they don't even know what to say. Whoa. But so you teach those things, and like I say, the positioning, you know what your fires are going to be. You know where your victims are going to be. Why do we know these things? Pre-fire planning. We know that they're building these things over here and there, and we see the mattresses in the living room when we're going to pick up grandma on the second floor. Hey, guys, know that that's right there to the left. We hit that at 2 a.m. We got to be ducking off into that room real quick. And you could show it on the, Galliano's go, no-go thing. A million people, I'm not going to that window over there because of this. We know that window has 4 beds in it. We've got to go there. And so who says you can't set your bay up? We did it last year. We set it up with just chairs and some old crap wood we had by the dumpster. And hey, guys, we know to make this right-hand turn, because our last 2 or 3 fires, we've had to make that 90-degree right. And we're missing that preloading. Either the pikeman's got to preload himself. Wait a minute, you can't do that. One person, well, crap, you might have to. Or the guy coming up, hey, the boss has made the loop around. Hey, grab it right there. That extra 5 feet you got by having, the extra 8 feet you have by having it on your shoulder real quick, and then you duck walk in. That's one of the things I love that Fields does. Now, I don't think we realize how much hose we have just by standing up with it. I'm 6 feet tall. I'll put it to here. That is 12 to 15 feet of hose I have that I can just grab it there, duck back down, and then move. And your bay floor, you got it. And you're doing those things. And like I say, with the positioning, yeah, know how to do it in the hard. Absolutely. If you have a guy who can't stand still, hold nozzle under whatever operating pressures you're using it under, that's an issue. Not going to say it's not, but it's also simple positioning. And that's one of the first big steps. You may need to have somebody outside your organization, as hurtful as it may be to feelings. Hey, I can't help but notice y'all's department does what Kyle and them are doing, or does what Aaron's doing, Bonifield, whoever you're following, or follow them all. Trenton Slattery out of Moore, Oklahoma, does a great nozzle class. Hey, man, show me this real quick again. I've got a guy that's struggling in this position, and in this and in that, and move forward with it. So I'm not even sure where I was at the moment there. So.
No, you're good. No, so you kind of talked into one of the questions I was going to ask about mimicking like 1403, and that's kind of where I was hoping to go with asking you that. I know that a lot of departments with either personnel or laundering gear or those kinds of things, and quite frankly, whether it's good or bad, I'm not here to debate, but quite frankly, a lot of firefighters, their only training is their every third day, or for you guys, your rotation, and that's it. They get an hour, maybe 2 hours. That's it. And but you still need to provide something for them to get them up to speed with that. And that was more of what my question, was gearing towards was, obviously you probably can't put a 1403 style live fire drill for shift personnel, but what can you do to kind of gear them towards that in your hour and a half, 2 hour drill?
And like I say, the positioning that you're going to see, and then obviously if you have tactics and SOPs, work within those, and then start expanding. One of the best things, and I kind of hit on this a minute ago with the start stops, and I noticed a guy was on here, Captain Penny is watching. We used to do these things. They would pause us, and almost that tactical pause. Now, if we did something foundationally wrong, be careful about stepping here. Landmines. We shouldn't be scouting out landmines. In training, because we know those things are dangerous. We know roofs can be dangerous. That's why they made sure they got us up on a lot of roofs. And you had those senior guys like Captain Penny, Captain Murray, that would, hey, feel this. This is not spongy. This is just a bounce. Then now this over here, wow, that's a hole. And we rode the district. We looked for those things, and so those tactical pauses, like we were talking, man, you crack that door open, you do your live fire layout. In the middle of that live fire layout, is there that pause to actually listen? We get it when we're doing trainings around the nation. Like you said, guys just run at the problem. They went through the building check just same as everybody, which I like. Act like you've been there. Fantastic. The bed's on floor 2. Be there. You're going to make that second floor window or second floor interior stair. Don't miss the fact that they were exiting. And they made it there. They went to an area of refuge. We know bathrooms are one of the most areas of refuge. And we still get guys in training classes. We get guys in real life that are searching bedrooms, completely overlooking the bathroom. And it's an afterthought until later in the fire. We know those things now. And so as you set up your training scenario, you got 5 minutes, you got an hour, however long it is at your station. One, set it up realistic. Hey, we know we're going to do this the next fire. Driver, operator, I want to see you do these couple of things. Great. Back steps, whatever that looks like for you, 1, 2, 3, whatever. And then I don't, I've recently, I don't call them audibles anymore. As an industry of professionals, I know still in sports they call it an audible, but they're going to a play they have practiced. These guys are making millions of dollars. Hey, we're now going to do plan 7. Plan 7 is becoming plan 1. And they're like, okay, let's do it. And they've rehearsed those plans. The whole calling an audible, hey, we're going to make this up real quick. I want you to go do this. No, we know that turns out poorly in our profession. We're going to do something that we've practiced. Absolutely. Hey, we are all 3 going to get on the hose line. Why? Because we've done this. We're going to have to make the 3rd floor. And we know that requires personnel. And then my risk assessment and my task management, okay, to put 3 people on this in a department that has 4 to 5 guys showing up, that means the other 2 got to be filling these other voids. And every department gets hit with it at some point, regardless of your staffing. Some have that immediate buffer to where there's no time delay in it. What are you going to ride off at some point? Is removing the victim from the fire or the fire from the victim? Those are split-second decisions that in your bay floor, pulling up, however your station's set up. Our station's set up with 4 streets around it. They can pull up in a multitude of different directions. Great, here's a real quick photo. Here's the scene you have. Go. Here's limited information. Here's too much information. Go. And then sit there, okay, how are they going to split their crew? How are they going to do it by themselves? Cap will tell you, if he was on this same thing, we're still an agency. In the past 18 months, we've had 3 working fires, 2 to 3 working fires that only one of us has been available. We got the rig and went and started work. You stretched your own line, you threw your own your ladder, you pumped your own truck, and you went to work the most appropriate way that you could. Anybody that's writing NFPA manuals out there? Well, no, there's absolutely nothing in there that says that. I don't think there's anything less than 2 people in any of the manuals.
No, yeah, there's nothing for single person at all.
And, and I would dare say a great majority of the fire service, and that's a reality, whether they want it to be or not. And you can argue either side, should we be doing these things? I knew I wanted to go help people. It's another opportunity to serve. Now, once again, back to that risk assessment thing, all those years of training, all those moments, all those times that the captains and the other guys poured into us, that's that moment it needs to pour back out when you make that assessment. Okay, my assessment should erase doubt. It can't erase risk. It's a risky job.
Yeah.
But at some point, the odds got to be in my favor for a period of time. And I think that's things that I would think that you could do. And it's not necessarily 423. This is just general command level stuff. Now, this is one of the only times I advocate stopping any sort of forward movement is to do a tactical reset. We get so entrenched. Why is the truck parked right here? Well, that's where we parked it. Well, you know what? How long does it take to actually put the truck, take it back out of pump gear, move it up 5 feet? Because the deck gun's hitting into a tree. There's a great video out there. I'd have to find it again. There's actually like a 100-year-old cherry tree in the way of the ladder getting to this fire. And the guy, the chauffeur brings it over 2 or 3 times. They actually get a chainsaw out and start cutting this 100-year-old cherry tree. And like 20 minutes into this video, they finally pull up the outriggers, back up about 10 feet, and ladder the roof. the shift boss immediately, when he pulled up, looked and said, "Hey, the tree's going to be in the way. Do it right now." As painful as it's going to be to have this 2 minutes happen right now, way less painful than being totally in the wrong place. But that's something you practice with your crews. Even in the fire service, definitely the law enforcement side, and I'm not a peace officer, work with some extraordinarily talented men and women in the law enforcement industry and have been a tactical medic for years. We call it the OODA loop. Reset their OODA loop. See what that looks like. Because you find out a lot about your personnel when they get reset. Can they reset? Look at the people at the end of the physical agility that are out for 45 minutes. Okay, wow, they just burned a bottle in 5 minutes. And are those the same people that, and I don't know if your fire department has them. We've had some. They burn their bottle. They got to go sit down for a few minutes. We need to get right back in the fight. Okay, I can't. And you learn your crews that way. You can develop your tactical playbook if you practice for real with your people. If it's BS drills that are laughing and hokey jokey, the RIT connections. It's one of the few things, and I'm not telling them my department because they're knocking it out of the park. In the areas when they're mopping the floor, I ask them to do the RIT connections while they're mopping. It took over 7 minutes in broad daylight for them to get hooked up to the Proby a couple months ago in broad daylight. And as Robert Ramirez says, there's no way on earth when you go lizard brain, you've got 1,000 pounds of ceiling on your back, zero viz. If you do not get this stuff down in the bay floor, there's no way you're doing it when I'm in my worst moment I'm having. When that guy leans in with the knife and somebody asks you that calculus question, there's no way you're solving that until you get down. Okay, man, we've done this 1,000 times. Man, we've done it 1,000 times. You know what? Let's see if we can do it left-handed. Why would we do it left-handed? Well, you know what? Because of this, this, and this. What if you're down on your right side? It happens. You're up against the wall, whatever. You can't deploy your RIT connect. What are your plans? And it doesn't have to be Mayday situations. It can be anything.
Yeah.
The old truck we used to have, occasionally the hose, outside ladder rails, the hose would get caught on the outside, on the 24 or the 16 roof. I've literally watched, and I know Captain Penny's the same thing. Watch guys almost flip the truck over trying to pull the pre-connect off the driver's side. Hey, walk around real quick. It's probably hung on the ladder. Unflip it. Go about whatever you're doing. But man, that OODA loop just keeps getting punched, and they're not resetting to programmable stuff. Reset them. Hey, wow, we've had a major collapse. No, you had ceiling fall on you. Now, I'm not advocating standing on top of the rig and dropping an 4x8 piece of sheetrock on somebody, but I've seen people absolutely lose their minds when the fire's doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing. And people run away and do whatever. You know what? Hey, I've got stuff falling. I've seen people lose their mind when a roof line gets eat up by fire. No, the fire's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. Hang on, that's really sagging. And I see the ridge line snapped. Totally different situation.
Yeah.
Fire behavior and fire dynamics is one of the best things YouTube can teach a lot of people. Hey, and then drive in your district. Hey, remember that video we saw from wherever? Man, that house is probably going to do that. And they look at it and you see the nice banana, in the ridge line, or you see the stringers from the rafters coming down, and you can see the waves. Hey guys, if we had to ladder this, you can see the rafters you need to run up. And then you start learning those things. Art Ashley talks about it, years and years of being a ghetto truckie in Lexington. Man, my feet are spaced out 16s and 24s, and it just naturally goes to that. And I just walk the rafters, but you incorporate those things. and you lay out for your guys. You lay out your cuts. You lay out your drop point. Man, how awesome would it be when you get to the station and there's a drop point before you get to the door? And it's offset from the door. Why? Because we don't want to be in that same fatal funnel we tell the cops not to be in. We know bad stuff happens there. And then we put messages where we know we need to be taking in input. You get to that drop point that's about 15 feet off your doorway to the back or front of your station, however you enter. And man, you sit there and then you look up at that roof line, which you should be doing anyway. And wow, oh yeah, we've got a meeting today. And then you know you're going to kneel down real quick and do your mask up if that's what your policy is. And when you kneel down and you're doing your mask up and you're reaching down for your gloves or whatever you're doing, oh yeah, it's yard day. And there's messaging there. And you start teaching your people to take in critical input. Because once again, they don't know why they're masking up right there. They step off the rig and they are masked up, and you've got a pot, the amygdala response, you got a pot of burnt chicken, and you're following them. And they're wondering, what the hell's Alex doing? No, you're missing the fact that it's telling you food on the stove, and you're about to boot Mrs. Smith's door in the next week. And this is one of those times, yes, is it an emergent situation? Do we need to handle it? But this is probably the time to do a respectful entry, because we smell this food on the stove instead of just destroying their front door. And you'll get people, I know there's people on there right now that would argue with me all day long. Dave, you know it's action time. We can't take those minutes. No, you're taking seconds. Hey, roll real quick. You're the one who bought all those little shove keys and all this other stuff off the deal. Hey, pop this door real quick. And then in my head, just like I would do with an innovation, I'm going to hold my breath real quick. Man, when I got to breathe, they got to breathe. Hey, we're about to ventilate this house. I want to check what I'm doing real quick. Hey, I'm going to give you one attempt, just like I would with an innovation or a critical airway. You be standing by with secondary. And you be standing by just coming Kool-Aid through the door. Hey, I'm going to give you one chance with the respectful entry, and then we're going to go to the irons. And as soon as I roll to the irons, if I have to roll anything forcible entry off of plan A, and I know I said didn't do plan A's, my plan A always is an off entry. The door opens, man, that's fantastic. The door opening is actually never plan A for me. I find a window or a wall or something, and I'll go through that way. But you find those moments and you inject those things, man, it becomes a thought process. And when they do get the normal calls, they start driving those conversations. Hey, man, remember that time they were over there? We used to run this frequent flyer all the time, and all the time he was on the couch, except for the one time he was in the bathtub. Through the OODA loop, and the crew was like, well, crap. They went over there, they handled the call, did what they needed to do, but man, that one time he was in the bathtub. Okay, guys, remember, he may be taking a bath, when this place goes sideways.
Well, and like what you're getting at, I feel like a lot of it is like those defaults, right? So I know not plan A or anything like that. We joke about lizard brain stuff, but really that's it. Like you can tell who's doing these things more frequently. Like when they're not wearing an air pack and they hear, the alarm go off and they shake their butt. If you're a scout, like people that are like that, like they just do that stuff because it's natural. And I think that's kind of what you're getting at with some of what you're talking about is when you do those trainings is you're trying to take those things and turn those into automatics. So they're not thinking about them because they don't need to. Be.
Well, it goes back to, and I've mentioned this several times before, we should not be improv actors. No, we should be the best at it. If, man, that curveball flies in, man, we saw it as soon as it was leaving that pitcher's hand. We knew that was going to be. I used to joke when my son he still plays baseball, but when I was a part of his baseball life, it's batting practice, not strike practice. Take swings. Get in the habit of bat on ball. And you see all these kids growing up, and if your boys play, you'll see the same thing. And they sit there waiting for this golden just meatball to come down the center pipe. That's not what it's about. and you're absolutely right on the default settings. We are and this leads into passionate pursuit. We have to remember we are a performance-based industry. If you cannot perform, you shouldn't have not that there aren't roles available, but not on the operation side of what we do. Now, do people still have value? Absolutely. Do people have roles in systems? Great. If you're going to be an operator, you've got to be able to operate. And in the capacities that you can do those things, there shouldn't be any level in our profession that has that C team, and in fact that's one of the things Fields says. We're the only profession that routinely fields our our C players, our practice squad, and not even our practice squad. We just go find people off the street, and hey, here you go. Good luck with this, and that. And I've said numerous times, the public doesn't know that we do that. They don't. And the reason I know that, because look at what we actually hold standards to. If they screw up the order at Sonic, Jack in the Box, whatever, unless it's just a long drive, we either just live with it or we will turn back around. Hey, you messed up what my expectation was. And that's a kid making your hamburger or your taco or a corn dog or whatever. Well, we will physically turn back around and say that, but we won't go up to the guy or gal that is late to work or stretches the hose bad. They've missed, IVs, I get it, they come and go, but you miss like 1,000? Or you're over there shaking because you're about to do this skill? Your hard part of the job is talking to fifth graders? Really? I can't help notice that, the good-looking gals at the grocery store, you manage to tell them everything we do. But Mrs. Jones's fourth grade English class, and not everybody's a gifted presenter. I get that. But hey, here's what we do in a nutshell. We do this, this, and this. And, the thought flying off there again. But the performance-based end of what we do, people are paying phenomenal money for our show. There's not a show on Vegas. There's not a show. You take the epitome of what you like to see. And I'm fortunate I'm going to be able to present this lecture at FDIC twice, actually. And I usually don't put in specific slides for performers because it's so subjective. I grew up, my dad was, loved jazz and was classical music. My grandmother was an opera singer. So when I go to my Zen moments musically, a lot of people, that's nowhere near for them. But take the epitome of what you do as a show that you would go pay top dollar for, and then you look at the payroll for your emergency services. Just take a payroll like ours. We're talking several $1 million, our budget for a one-time performance. Man, if we put that out there, hey, you're going to get to see all the greats, anybody that's ever lived. It's a one-night performance. People would pay. Look what people pay to go up 3 or 4 miles up with Branson and Virgin Atlantic and pay to go on these crazy adventures. That family is paying everything for one call. And we're in the chair. We're bullshitting our training. The hose bundle. It's good enough. The medic's not restocked. One of the full is full. Wow. We've actually changed our stuff. We haven't rewritten the policy yet. We carry 5,500 snap chain Scots. Hey, anything below 5,000. Went and talked with some of the captains and said, hey, man, I've got every reason to believe that the guys that are saying that 500 PSI, 45 to 4 or 22, man, that's like 30, 40, 50 breaths. Damn it, full is full. Top them off. I remember asking a guy years ago, the 3/4 light was blinking, or the full light was blinking on the rig. And I said, He's like, it'll be fine. I was like, how much water is not in there? When does the light change? It's a 500-gallon tank. I'm smart enough to know that each light represents 125 gallons. What if it switches at 124? Lost. I mean, that's a shit ton of water. That's a minute off my firefighting ability. And crap. And we ended up filling it up with the green line. It took almost 30 minutes to fill it up at like 5 gallons a minute. I'm like, damn it, that was like a 70, 80, 100 gallons lost in the rig. And so we've got to look at it that way. And we should look at it that way. And if we looked at it that way, I haven't mentioned, my college roommate was on Broadway. And in a traveling show, it was in Phantom of the Opera. They would sit, the producers would sit like 10 rows back with binoculars assessing the characters, the sets. Why? Because people are paying hundreds of dollars a ticket. It has to be perfect. You have to be transported to whatever world they're creating. Like I say, if you only got paid one time a year and they were going to pay you your whole salary for that one performance, wow, how much work would you put in? And and I say that totally humble also. Am I the firefighter? And you hear this from guys, man, I hope every day I'm the firefighter that I want showing up. I'm not in a split district, but I'm equidistant between 16s and 15s here in Arlington. Nine truck and 9 engine, and then six house, 6 truck. They're coming to my house, and then 12s and 10s. I expect those guys to have been thinking about today, what are they going to do if they catch a fire in a single story? And ours is still set up like they taught us in fire school. Bedrooms are opposite of the garage. And they come in and they do the stuff. Man, that's my expectation. I can't work an hour away and not have them be held to a standard and then hold myself to that standard. Because when I show up in my city, they don't know it. Only a few of your people know it in your city. Man, they're putting their trust in me. I love it when Mo and Clyde talk about it. The city of Houston goes to sleep because we are protecting them. And at 3 a.m., you're not handing your kid to a total stranger. Take one of your boys out at 3 a.m. and find a random stranger and hand it to them. At 3 a.m., the other night when they caught that fire, I think it was 1 in the morning, hey, they're right there. They're right there. People were pointing and people were expecting. The company 30 seconds out. No one else is coming. It's up to us. And as Court says it, of Oklahoma City, Corley says it, thousands and thousands of dollars in equipment, training, and everything to go to the places that someone else couldn't go to.
The decision's been made before.
It has.
Right before you're even there. The decision's been made.
Yep.
Yeah. Well,
and so that's worth some knee pain. That's worth, hey, at least 2 or 3 times a shift, you should practice down in that environment. Let me just, of course you're going to look ridiculous. But man, hey, what are you doing? Man, I'm practicing this search technique real quick. And once again, back to that lettering, why is critical information not below that 4-foot line in your building? Why? Because we're programming our guys to look at it right there above the urinal, on the back of the stall door, on the dry erase board, all these other things. We're programming everybody to 5 to 6 feet. Now, occasionally I will. I did it. Robert Ridley was taking pictures. He asked, why is that one high? And I was like, that one's where a bunk bed would be. I fill 1 bed, I got to fill for 2. And I got to go up. And IKEA's making three bunk beds now.
Yeah.
Crap, I've got to step up on that deal because, man, am I going to miss that 3rd one?
Yeah.
Man, that stuff sticks with you. Or it should. But anyways.
Yeah. Congrats on getting to FDIC next year to have
Thank you. Thank you.
your class, the passionate pursuit, and that's a really cool experience. And how often have you gone there? Were you there the last couple of years? Have you ever been
I've gone.
there?
I think this will be the 5th or 6th year I've been able to go. It is one of those things. Yeah, I wish I'd have been going all the time. Uh, I don't. I don't think I would have not appreciated it, but having it take a little while to go to, and then very awesomely, we had a city manager that was like, "Hey, y'all need to go to this," and so the director and I have been able to go past couple of years. We're going to try and take a few other people this time. The decision's not up to me, but the work I've been able to, the myself and the city have been able to do with 3M. It's very neat to see all that play out, all the advertising, all the stuff they've done, and a couple other people that we've been able to that have come down and burned and done some things. It's neat to see those things. So yeah, and I think this is the 3rd or 4th time I've submitted presentation, and kept honing it and practicing it and going places with it. So yeah, very. I don't know which day at the main conference I'll be speaking at. I know I'll be speaking Monday at Women in Fire that week and presenting the same thing. So super excited to be with them, and then later in the week present it again.
Yeah, congrats.
Thank you so much, and I love the topic, and it's built off of what my dad always said: prior proper planning prevents piss poor performance. And we start with performance, the conversation we literally just had, and then we back that up into what are you doing, and where are you looking for training, because you may get some of the most wildest buck wild training that has no application to where you're going to be performing it. And so we talk about being diligent with that stuff. It's one thing, like I said, having a stack of notes that may be applicable someday. There are so many awesome, and somebody posted Capital City training earlier. Those guys are awesome. Find people that are doing stuff close to what you're doing or what you want to be doing. And start seeking out those experiences. Now, if your department's brand new, yeah, it's all wide open. You haven't even decided hose loads. Yeah, go to any class and you'll get information. If you're running Minuteman stuff, yeah, obviously Aaron's class is highly contagious and worthwhile. If you're not throwing ladders at all, any ladder class will do. If you're looking for that next step awesomeness, yeah, Magic City Truck, and OJ Kaloje and those guys, I mean, they put on a phenomenal class. Seek out that proper training, and then the prior, and then the critique. As I mentioned earlier, you've got to find a peer group, or just close the doors and have at it. I'll tell you, in the early years of being in Hillsboro, there's times we would close the doors. Now, I will tell you, we closed the doors after we had enough conversations that went well. When we started seeing the ultimate need to really start critiquing stuff, of course it was over bad things. Joe Blow did whatever, somebody did this, somebody did that. We started critiquing every call. And what we found is, man, that guy who was messing up on the 1 or 2 time a year calls was doing so many things right on everything else. And some days it was, hey, you drove there, great. Or, hey, that was good placement. Man, that ended up working out well, the X, Y, and Z. We created a conversation that allowed for things to be good and things to be improved upon. And when we came across those things that needed to be improved upon, we were already talking. Nobody wants to be pulled aside every time just to tell they suck. I mean, that is not the morale builder people think it is. That is not your spiritual gift, is to tell people they suck. And so that way, that critique of your performance needs to be there. And then, and at the end of it, I kind of turn the tables. If you're doing all those things, what is it likely to turn into? And we talk about some things. I bring up a few calls that have personal, that I was a part of them somehow, every one of them. Um, but how the pre-planning before that call went in, rang in, had a direct effect on how the outcome, and they all three turned out good. I mean, I could obviously have a bunch of bad ones uh, that didn't turn out well, but that doesn't make for a great
Yeah,
great class.
yeah,
The three calls, like I say, they turned out well, and it's directly to either what we were doing or the department that was involved with them was doing. So, like I say, anybody that's going to be there, obviously I'll post when I know what day I'm on. Would love to see people there. And there's also, man, there's so many fantastic classes there. If you don't make it to mine, make it to somebody's. Do not miss out on these guys and gals that are presenting. I know they're putting in the hard work to make this some people get to go one time to FDIC, see the things, go to the exhibits, go out every night to the socials, and do those things. So,
yeah. I'm hoping last year I threw together a guide for new people and classes, and I'm hoping to do another one again
awesome.
this year. And they were maybe going to collaborate a little bit, so
Awesome.
hopefully that happens, and hopefully I get a chance to go again. I don't know if I will, but hopefully, because for me it's 4 hours, 4.5 hour drive. It's like nothing for me to go. I mean,
Exactly.
but yeah, I'm very lucky in that way. But then there's there's a trade off because there's not as many mini conferences and stuff. Although firemanship is coming like
Oh
within
yeah.
an hour or so of me too, so I guess maybe everything's starting to come our way, which is pretty awesome. But so recently, I don't know when you first posted it, but you were sharing some stuff about making your cutters more accessible,
Yeah.
putting the golf ball, doing those things, and I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about what's in your pocket. And I know a lot of people do this drill and they love to do this kind of drill, and everybody will sit around and talk about all the different things they carry and why they carry them. Personally, I recently just changed my mindset a little bit about what's in my pockets and why, and streamlined some stuff. But I wanted to kind of plug your brain a little, and if you could share some of your experiences over
Yep.
your career about what's in your pocket and why.
So, going back to the fire academy, and he has since passed, instructor self. We made the door, and I chalked the door. We made the landing. I pulled out some gizmo and did something there. We made whatever we were doing. And instructor self was like, Pruitt, the next thing you pull out of your pocket, you better be ready to have it shoved up your beep. I slowly slid it back in my pocket, and we carried on about whatever we were doing. Now, I was hands down as a tailboard firefighter, the walking toolbox, and I should actually be in great shape because just carrying around all this crap with me, little multi screwdrivers and wrenches and all this stuff. And, those of y'all that have been doing this for a little while, this is pre-Firestore, and Galls was it, and unless you found something, out there, and we're out there cutting our own wooden wedges, with shit wood from the dumpster and stuff. But man, I had all this stuff in my pockets, and slowly over the years, ounces add up to pounds, pounds add up to pain. And I love doing RIT stuff. One of the most humbling drills is when you got your side pockets full of stuff and you can't fit through the stuff, and the guy stops you. Hey, wow, your pants are ballooning. You've corked yourself in there. That was one of the first moments. And then I started looking, okay, what do I actually need? And what am I actually using on the calls? And I started splitting my calls up into, and it's actually on the board in my office, the frequency of things. Now, I joked with my wife earlier, I do not have a set of elevator keys in my anywhere on me. Why? Because we do one, maybe two a year. It's perfectly fine being under the seat, the officer's seat of the engine or truck. There's a Houston fireman. His name escapes me right now. He carries a little, like Milwaukee tool bag full of just that extra stuff. So these days, so I've all that to say, I've slowed it down. What I'm carrying right now in my gear, starting with my pants, my right pocket is for me. I've got a 20-foot piece of straight webbing with a carabiner on the end. It is hooked into my very fortunate Fire Innovations. Provided a couple of us with belts and stuff. So it's hooked to that. So there's my 20 feet. I can at least get down third or fourth floor and drop the rest of the way. Also in that pocket, I have another set of cutters. And just like the video you're referencing the other day, they're in an old piece of 1 3/4. So that way when they pull out, they're springed open. I took the opening off, the lock off, so they just open automatically. And then I have a knife in that pocket. I try to. Most knives are throwaway, as they should be. Wear your nice knife out to dinner or whatever. They're not cheap knives. I'm not going to say they are, but I know they're going to drop someplace, this and the other. But I have a spring assisted dagger. The reason I carry that is no matter what way I go with it, I want it to cut. In all the bad parts and all that stuff happening, the Book of Revelations is being read. I don't want to have to fumble with which direction I've got to cut with. And then occasionally there may be a simple screwdriver or a shove knife in that pocket. Left pocket is almost always empty except for a twin or a full-size bed sheet. Mike Heaney out of Austin Fire showed me this a couple of years ago, and I just sit there it's not even a light bulb moment. It's just like, wow. If 90% of our nursing home patients, all these patients, we move with the sheet draw and a bed sheet, it's negligible weight. It crushes down in my pocket pretty easily. I left one in Michigan that they were using. I actually had golf balls on the corners. That way, when I threw it out there, the golf balls flew out. And then this one's just knotted on the corners. I can feel those knots. Throw it out, burrito you up, civilian, fireman, whatever I need to be doing, and start dragging you. It's dirty drags save lives. The majority of rescues are made off dirty drags. The majority of firefighter rescues that require any dragging are usually dirty. If I need that extra bonus, man, I've got it right there in that sheet. It gets wrecked, it gets ruined. I chunk it. Dollar store, I think I'm at like $4, $6 or whatever. Or if I wait long enough, there'll be one sitting at somebody's curb. Rinse it off on the back pad, shove it in my pocket. Coat pockets is a combination of things. I think it was Tim Klett that talked about the number of wedges he carries. On my coat, I carry 2 spring wedges. I carry 2 to 3 koozie wedges where you cut the hole, you cut it open. And then imagine 2 golf balls with about 10 to 12 inches of paracord in between them. And they're just real easy. They don't stab you in your side. They don't do anything. They take up the weight of 2 golf balls. I carry 2 of those, so 4 golf balls in my coat pocket. And they're real easy. Just drop over a door jamb real quick or drop over, and it just holds the door in place. It's just a real simple. I think it was Tim Klett. He said he carries 6 wedges. And he talks about his progression up to the fire floor.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it's Tim Klett. I think you're right because I've heard the same thing.
I used to carry a set of vice grips. We have a ton of spring doors or screen doors. What changed me on that, now the vice grips, and they're not on there right now. Tanner and Mason, if you're still listening, find them, put them on the 2 rotary saws, because that's where we're going to use it. When I first started in the career, we would clamp them on screen doors to hold them open. If the place is actually on fire, screen doors come off, real doors stay on. And then you still find people that are taking doors off all the way, and they're succeeding. So I'm not going to say they're totally wrong, but you're running that risk of uninhibited airflow, air entrainment. It's just way too easy to control the door these days. And then left side, I have several markers, chalk markers, paint, Sharpies, stuff like that. Not only for USAR types, situations that we can encounter if we got to do a search, but also just for quick teaching and stuff. We'll sit there and draw out a quick chalk outline of whatever we were doing, and just shop talk it real quick. Tailboard talk at the end of a call or something, or we may mark an entrance. Nothing says and I've yet to do this. So if my guys for living's like, you've never done that. What the plan would be is if I'm going around the structure on my 360, if I'm not already inside, hey, let me label this real quick, or hey, wow, this is the audible that we don't do, but hey, go to where the X is on the wall, and I've got a marker in my pocket to do that with. And then we still play crash them up pretty regular. Like I say, over 30 miles of interstate highway. That paint marker is not coming off. And so when we triage somebody, whichever way we're doing it at that time, the guys and gals know red, yellow, greens, blacks, 1, 2, 3, 4s, whatever we're doing.
Yeah.
So in my helmet, an extra Nomex hood up in top, and then my earplugs are up in there. Usually a set of somewhere, either my inside, one of my pockets, and then usually my helmet, I have an extra set of just like clear glasses. The glasses are always after the fact. I'm like, oh yeah, I probably should have my glasses on. And I've never once on a call like, holy shit, I probably should put on my hearing protection. It usually, hey, wow, we're going to be cutting a lot, or this is going to be sustained. Yeah, let me pull these out real quick. When it's go time, the hearing protection is usually an afterthought. And then, stuff's underneath. I've got the set of cutters that y'all saw in the video, an Ipex set of bolt cutters, once again, inside a piece of 1 3/4 hose. And then on my other side is obviously carry a right angle light, carrying it upside down, attached with a gear keeper. That way it's in its true right angle fashion. And if you carry it upside down, y'all will find it shines a lot better. I like having it on the Sean Duffy showed me the gear keeper deal. If I do need to hold it, I can unclip it real quick, leave it on there, and I've got it. I can move it around and stuff like that. So that's my carry stuff. And I will have at least one tourniquet at all times, top and bottom.
Huh. Are like the cat tourniquet, like the?
I'll carry a cat. I like the soft tee.
Okay.
It's more like a rubber. It's a rubber band.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Once again, back to and all you young guys that are like, man, I got stabbed in the leg again. Man, I got this. I got that. As I fill out my gear, as a full-figured fireman these days, man, I'm tired of getting stabbed in the leg by things, and the tourniquet is bulky. At times, the cat tourniquets and stuff like that. There's a couple smaller ones out there, like say the soft T, being one of them. And then, and I'll challenge everybody this, the ones, if you're going to carry it in your gear, I usually have, especially like a cat or something, I have it to where it's totally open.
Yeah.
Unless you're just practicing it at its full out, it's difficult to get up over that gear, starting at the boot. It's easy to, and this isn't a stop the bleed class, but I find it easier, and especially the ones we don't have on the chainsaw right now. Mason Tanner, remind me of that tomorrow. The ones on the chainsaw, we leave all the way open too. That way, because man, me starting at your boot and getting it up into place, it's going to take time. I throw your leg up real quick, and I'm up in your femoral, and we're going. I personally can do that quicker than I can get it up over your boot.
Oh, that's fair.
Uh,
Yeah,
so that's where I'm at on the gear stuff.
that's
Yeah.
cool. There's a bunch of stuff that I've never. I'm learning, and you sparked the conversation with obviously that video, but even before that, I was at a fireman charity golf outing, and one of the guys I was with, he learned something about carrying golf balls just to carry them, and I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, I don't remember the guy's name, but or whoever he was talking about. He's like, yeah, some old guy basically was like, well, you could throw the golf ball, and if you hit something where you
Oh
are in the
yeah.
room. I was like, wow, like just stuff like that. Like I said, I've streamlined my gear over the last year. I used to be a walking toolbox too, and
Oh yeah.
I started to realize like I was taking up pocket space for things that really weren't necessary. So now I kind of have a go bag that's in the engine.
Yep.
So that's
Oh,
it.
sure.
So if it's extra stuff like my extrication gloves, like it's not like I'm going to be on a fire and all of a sudden it's becoming an extrication. I know I'm going to an
Exactly.
extrication, so I would just put them on in the rig while I'm going or something like that. So
Exactly. Well, and so the golf ball stuff for me, Rob Ramirez talks about it, and so Viking Gear gave me a set of gear. Me and a couple other guys would build your culture. And I say this in all seriousness, and I bounced Ramirez and let him know I was going to say this. Everything I've just mentioned. So the build your culture code, the Viking Gear, the pocket. I'm not even calling it a radio pocket anymore. My cutter's pocket is on the right chest, and flashlight's on the left. And so, but I started looking at it, and I don't know why. Sean Duffy spec'd it all out. I don't know why he spec'd it that way. But my cutters are now on the right when I wear that coat. But when I started looking at it, I dressed my golf ball down the center. And so my hand motion coming up both ways is through the center. No problem. And I'm going to stand up real quick. Y'all see my gut. Everything I do, and I've mentioned this in a few other places, when I teach things, to keep it simple for me, I teach everything the same way. So when we do law enforcement, I told you, I worked for Charlie Mike SWAT for several years. When we would teach shooting techniques, everything's centered. You're punching out. Now, unless you just have to, you're over here. We don't teach people to shoot. No. We teach you to come up center mass every time and plate forward. So when all my movements, my radio, my golf ball, everything, my primary tourniquet on my tack vest is straight up the middle. That way, no matter what, all I got to do is do this. I'm not reaching shoulders. I carry some on my shoulders. Those are the ones for other guys to grab off. If I'm going to put one on you, it's straight up center. So when I started looking at and vetting that process, and so when Ramirez showed everybody, he didn't like, hey, Dave, I'm going to show you this. I saw it at a conference he was at, Honor the Fallen, a couple of years ago. I was like, damn, that looks really cool. It's probably going to work. Let me vet this. And I'm sitting there going, okay, it worked that time. It hung up this time. And I'm doing those critiques because I got to be able to perform. If I'm pulling my cutters out, my primary Nipex cutters, it's because all the bad parts of the Bible are happening. It's got to work first time. And so when I come up, I grab that golf ball, it pulls out, it immediately opens up. I identify left or right hand, it doesn't matter. And then I've got to go to whatever I'm in. And when we were talking about 1403 just what we were talking about was applicable live training. Okay, what position am I going to be in? Now, total transparency with everybody. The only times I've been hung up in wires, I've been standing in it's actually 2 or 3 of the same fires, commercial restaurants. Or I guess there's no residential restaurants, but commercial. And the drop ceiling's fallen, and we have walked into the drop ceiling's fallen, and we've walked into the stuff. Okay, crap. Let me get this off my helmet. Click, 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 click. And those things. And so I vetted that movement with the tool in place. When Sean's coat came in, okay, hang on. Golf ball's still right down the middle. Great. Flashlight, whatever. And my flashlight, okay, I'm still reaching it. The fact that it's here instead of here, okay, that's negligible to me. And so what I've been telling people is vet this stuff. Don't just trust us. You know, the fact that Ramirez has put in all this work and effort to say it, man, that's fantastic. Firefighter rescue survey. Well, I don't think that that's happened. Okay, where are you finding your victims? Well, we found them in beds, exit pathways, and living areas. Okay, that's exactly what the survey says. You know, we know these things, and it still cracks me up. Somebody posted this recently. If they were to change, well, not if, when American Heart Association changes the CPR guidelines, and we sit back down, they're like, hey, by the way, we're changing it. And everybody's like, what the hell? Okay, she's hot. I'm going to listen. Hey, what are we doing for dinner? Okay. Oh, the QA, hey, you got to do it this way. You know, EMS lieutenant, captain, whatever. Hey, you got to do it this way from now on. Within a month, we're doing it. And it's what it is until they change it again. We know exactly where people are supposed to be. We know exactly when they're not there where they might be. As American Fire Service, we have the most detailed roadmap we have ever had, and we choose just to go blindly. It blows my mind. And back to that performance. Your kids are going to be at the age, you said your oldest is about to be in preschool. He's going to do something. It is going to be the cutest, most beautiful thing you've ever seen. Take all the pictures and all the videos. You know, I don't know if I told you, I'm a professional musician for over 30 years now. And I've been extraordinarily fortunate to sing and be with some of the greatest entertainers in the world. Man, people show up with an expectation. And when you flub it, hey, nope, do that one again. Nope, that wasn't. I mean, they're unrelenting and cruel, and they expect. And that's just Saturday night shits and giggles. And they're not here to hear us. Most of them. My mom always is. And so yeah, I don't know.
Hey, that's awesome. No, I didn't know you were a musician. That's cool. You're partially speaking my language, although I'm not that good to that level. Some garage band stuff, but maybe one of these FDICs we can meet up at Howl at the Moon.
Let's do it.
That's usually a thing for me. At least if they still, I mean, they used to let you play with the band. I don't know if they still do that.
I don't know. Yeah, I have to look at that.
It's been a couple years since I've been able to go do that, but anyway, so let's unless somebody's got questions, we got a couple viewers still in here live, so if you do got anything, throw it our way. But otherwise, I'm going to roll into the four closing questions that we got here, right? So, first one, I love this one, and I'd love to hear what you have to say. Is what's one mistake that you've made and learned from?
So this one is one that I'm still making and still learning from. Obviously, as you can tell, I like to talk. I like to debate. I like to know whys, and I like it, but I don't like confrontation. I've never understood why we don't just show up and do our job, and especially when it really is at a elementary level spelled out for us. When you look at our career path, if you went to, take your pick law firm or a financial firm on Wall Street, and it actually had the list that we create. Okay, Monday, yard, Tuesday, windows, Wednesday. Okay, check them, and all these lists. Like, hang on, did y'all go to school for this? Oh yeah, years of schooling. Hundreds and hundreds of hours of schooling. They're like, you have a list that my kid's kindergarten teacher gives them. Okay, yeah, because we need it every day. Having those difficult conversations, and they happen. I'm the one who chose to be a chief officer. My dad told me don't promote above driver. And if you can be a driver of a truck company, consider yourself in heaven. And every time they asked me to promote, or I had the opportunity to promote, give it to me, having those, but what I'm learning I know I want them for myself. I don't want anybody to shy away. Hey, come tell me when I'm screwing up. Is it something I can fix, or have you given up on me, or what's the process? Walking into those rooms, and whether it's some guy who's not clean shaven, missing report, or some of the big issues. That's always been my, I don't want to say downfall or anything like that, but that's just been my difficult part because the things need to be done. Why aren't you doing them? You know, and I don't want it to never want it to come across. Oh, let me pass the buck. Captain, handle your people. This, that, and the other. I do want to respect the chains of commands, both up and down. But learning that I had a guy not too long ago, and it actually was over the shaving stuff, and I kind of apologized, which I'm a moron. Like, hey, I'm sorry, man. Are you going to shave? And he's like, why are you sorry? I need to shave. He's like, thank you for telling me that. And and it's one of those. It wasn't even a particularly complacency issue or whatever. He just hadn't shaved for several days. On 4896, like we were talking. I mean, 24-hour shift, 5 o'clock shadow. No, you didn't shave 3 days before you came to work, and now you've got like almost a full beard. They're noticing that, So that's, but I'm learning. One, once you start having them, back to that conversation, like the after actions and stuff like that. If you can start having them, man, it does get easier. And there's days, most days, hey, your shirt's got a hole in it, go to supply and have them issue another one or whatever. And some days it is hard stuff. I mean, we back to the passion stuff. If you think about what you're passionate about, it usually goes back to something childlike. Like I've wanted to be a fireman since I was a little kid, and as I said earlier, we're not paid communicators. This isn't. I forgot the guy's name from Shallow Hal. The tall guy. We're not motivational speakers. Raymond Dorval. I mean, if we could all be that dude, and motivate the world. And as passion bubbles, and you hear words like that, it bubbles up and it springs out. It never flows smoothly like molasses, and it has these outburst moments. And so when you poke people and they're passionate back, well, you got to be ready for those things. And it's not always HR friendly, but it's not always intended to be mean and hurtful. I mean, we deal with touchy subject. We have a very touchy subject job that creates things, and then you pile in 4, 5, 6, 10, 15, whatever your station is, people in the same place for any given amount of time.
Yeah.
And sometimes you got to wonder if that guy cooked with onions for real, knowing that you hate onions. And hopefully they did, every fireman has that conversation, or some dude. Or no, are you allergic to them, or you just not like them? That's two totally separate dinners, but yeah. So that's mine. There's a million other ones out there. Some regrets, that I mentioned, to some other people and stuff. The one I mentioned, with Corley about valuing those people and actually probably devaluing them. These days I try to seek out anybody and everybody, not to take from them, but just, hey, I want you to know you're important. Whether it's our community service person that's there working off hours for something, hey, thank you for being here, because you could be anywhere else. I am a spiritual person. It's impossible to think that it's all by happenstance, and you are exactly where you're supposed to be in those moments. And I would hate to think that we're not living those moments to their fullest, by not having conversations about certain things. So, yeah, that's kind of the answer on that.
I love it. Uh, Over the course of your career, have you ever lost your passion for the fire service? And if you did, what'd you do to get it back?
So, this is one of the questions I asked Stephanie. I asked her all of them, but no. For the job, no. For positions I've held, and if Chief's still on here, Chief Riley, being a chief officer sucks some days. It actually sucks most days. Um, not going in too deep on Chief's conversation. It was actually last year at Wichita Hot. I sat down with him and Matt Sleet, and I can't remember the other guy's name. And he was talking about something. I was like, hang on, wait a minute. You're not happy? He's like, Dave, someday this job's just suck. It was a paraphrase. And I was like, I just hugged him. Thank you. And I know, and I know Chief Thompson and some other guys and this, that, and the other. I know there's always a behind the scenes. It's not all perfect. But holy crap, some of these guys make this shit look really, really easy. And I remember asking my boss one day, I was like, man, what's going on? He's like, well, you realize when the majority, and I'm not saying this is not directed at my guys, the majority of people believes exactly the same thing. It's easy. Our department has things that are converging, and we're on the cusp of growth. Growth is never easy. As Fields points out, growth is work, and work is the shortcut. There is no other shortcut other than work. And so losing that passion, yeah, there's days, being a chief officer, ugh. I'm sitting there waiting for the bells to ring in. Let it be a fire. Let it be a fire. Give me a reason to get up from looking at missing reports, looking at budget items, looking at stuff, looking at the fact that, okay, we grow as a city, but not as a division. And knowing, okay, yeah, does that make sense down the line? No. Will it ever? No. Knowing that our streets need massive repairs and that the 10 to 12,000 people that call Hillsboro home drive those every day and need us 2,500 times a year. And out of that 2,500, how many are this? How many are that? I mean, we're going to see 1,000 people. Yeah, I'm probably choosing streets. That's hard.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't get to see that side of it. So, but what keeps me passionate, and it's funny, and I didn't know this. My wife, we've been married 20 years. We'll be 21 years in May. Her and her girlfriends actually joked at our wedding to have, because we got married in Arlington. My dad's house was engine company and truck company were like across the street or whatever. Have an engine come by laying on the Q2 to watch me turn away from my absolute smoke show gorgeous wife, watch me turn and be pulled to see where are they going, are they getting dressed, and that stuff. And I was like, that's hilarious. And I probably would have looked over, and we're 3 blocks off of Task Force 1. And she's asked me before, it's like, are you literally watching a fire truck video? You just got home from being around fire trucks. Well, it's not my fire truck. I mean, Kenland's going out. Boston's going out. Gurney's going someplace. Whoever. Highland Park's got another video. I've always gotten myself just immersed back in the joy of what this job is, and seeing people work. And, not in a negative way, but yeah, picking apart the videos, looking at those things and actually looking at any little bit. How can this be applicable to where I work? I had a young guy show me a video somewhere on the West Coast. It was Spanish tile. And after they parked the rig and did their stretch and did a couple of softening up things, I kind of stopped watching. He's like, hang on, we're about to get to the good part. I'm like, okay. I look back over. He's like, tell me what you're thinking. I'm like, we don't have stucco houses with Spanish tile. And he's like, oh. I said, so they parked the truck great. They did whatever, stretch. The applicable parts that we're going to do, I watched, and great. They were forcing or whatever they did to cut a hole in Spanish tile. If I ever go to the West Coast, I'll find that video again. Uh, so, anyways, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with that. It is weird, and to keep it, people like Chief Riley, some of the other guys that have been on the thing tonight, bumping into those guys is it's so strangely addictive. And, so many of us are broken for so many reasons. And you hear it in some of the stories that they tell, and we all tell. We're all searching, we're all seeking pathways and truths and just healing. There is absolutely no way to get enough of some of these guys, and it kind of goes into the next one, the next question. So I'll be quiet because it kind of goes into the next question.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you were ever gonna give someone a sense of the fire service that knows nothing about it, and you're gonna put them with one person, with us or gone, who would it be?
So my first fire job, I got hired September 10th, 2001. Woke up the next morning, drive over to the college, and they put your name on the board and give you a little hat. And the first plane had hit the tower. Never got to meet this guy, obviously, because he was murdered that day. But I'm fortunate enough to know. Would love to, if he said we were friends, I'd be like, oh my gosh. I know Ray McCormack, and I actually asked him a couple of months back. We were at the same place teaching. We were teaching at the same place, not together. I was like, man, was Joe Angelini as cool as what you describe him? And we just talked about him for a few minutes. And the senior guy in all of FDNY, that day when he passed away, there was nobody that had more time on than Joe. And to see the videos, to hear people like Ray and some other guys talk about him and the role he earned as senior man and how he lived that out. And if you get to hear Ray's FDIC speech, he talks about it, and he emphasizes, did the roles and the jobs that other guys thought were beneath them. He did them because they were supposed to be done. They needed to be done. Showed him as a young pipeman, as a young rescue guy, all those things. I for the longest time, and I had a bracelet that had his name on it. I had his picture on my helmet. Because, man, at 64 something years old, he catches a ride to the trade center. He was off on injury detail or something like that. But, man, this dude's making stairs and 40 something years on the job, and he's out working, 18, 19-year-old Jakes. There's nobody on my list that's not a worker. I think about the guys I've met, such phenomenal Matty Johnson, Ramirez, Jacob Johnson. I mean, if you cannot get fired up by one of your chiefs sitting there and valuing you so much that they learn your rap music and all this other stuff and learn your languages so they can better communicate with you. The guys I teach with, Sean Duffy, Dave Mellon, Justin Lorenzen, and then you get the guys, Justin Fraze. He's the bellwether mark of the stuff. Bentley and Bears of the Oath. Man, you sit around those guys because there's a distinct difference because it says culture. You can have great meals and you can have good family times. You can have stuff. And there's guys on my list that, probably wouldn't pull over if I was, on fire, for whatever reason. But when there was guys, the the night we had our son, our oldest, man, they seek you out. Blake, Stinnett, Basil. And I know it's a name drop fest. And what's awesome about all of these names, there are probably 10 guys and gals underneath them that are the reason they are who they are. And so find me those houses. Because like when Basil's crew made that rescue last year or the year before, I don't think there was a single guy that said, hang on, what are we about to do? They were like, hell yeah, we're doing this, we're doing that. Somebody stepped back, did a risk assessment. Hey, yeah, we're probably all about to get screwed up. My wife asked me, said, is it bravery or stupidity? I was like, you know what? I don't know most days. Half the medals easily could be pinned on posthumously. Probably more than half. And I would love to think, and I know that I was just the guy there at that moment. Supposed to be there. Like we talked earlier, but supposed to be there. So yeah, the culture. There's a young guy right now, and he's probably sitting at my station. Young guy or young girl that all they want is to show how much they love this job. Uninhibited. We tell you in your interview, we expect it, and then we beat the living shit out of you for doing it. I don't get it. Make that kid be the face of my organization and the fire service. Chief Brunacini had it up till his last breath. Chief Crocker, whatever, FDNY, Braidwood. I mean, you look back through our history as firefighters, man, sit down with those guys, and if they can't figure it out around those guys, sure as hell keep them away from the slugs. Go sit with Kevin Lewis in the back of 3 truck in Dallas and tiller that sucker around for a while. I mean, if you can't get jazzed up about what this job is, my buddies in Highland Park, they go to work knowing they're going to a fire. And yes, the district has changed, but man, hey, we are going to work today. We have to do this to make sure you're ready. I mean, there's a lot of people on the list, and I'm very fortunate to have it that way. So,
I mean that's great. I think that, and I think I've mentioned it on other episodes that I've had too. But we're in an era of the fire service right now where those connections are so not easy, but they're more accessible, I think, than they ever were. Right?
Oh yeah,
I think there's a lot of healing that comes from that. Myself being in that club, like without some of the connections that I've made, doing this show and starting with this, like I would be in a much darker place in terms of like feeling ostracized for loving the job, feeling alone at work, feeling all those things, and now like it's pushed me to do other things, and I know I'm not alone in that, and I know that there's other people that are the same way. Not even just because like either they listen to this or something of that nature. They went on YouTube and watched a video of somebody, and then that went to another thing, right? And
absolutely.
I just think now is such a great time to connect all those people that get it. And I think like last year with, or this year I should say, with Chief Rhodes saying, you're my tribe now. Like,
yeah,
words like that, they've existed. It's not that they haven't. And I haven't been doing this that long. It's only been 13 years, but like we said, kind of in the green room, like I grew up around it, as part of my life. I've never felt where that group, you're my tribe now kind of belief, being country or worldwide, has existed in the way that it's really in the beginning phases of right now. It's incredible.
And I think it's one of the best things that social media has done. I think it's one of the best things that vetting. Sorry, If that made it across, that was an impressive burp. If it stayed
It
all here.
didn't, but I kind of wish it did.
Okay, yeah, I think my left. Let me put that back on. Man, there's so many awesome people out there. And two of my favorite, Lex Shady and Chris Tobin. And I look at some of these younger firefighters that knowing that when I started in my career, they would not have had a voice at all. And that's just 20 years ago. That they are spreading the right messages and that people are listening to those messages. And man, it is so awesome. Some of these young instructors uh, that are just right. And what's awesome is they've taken the time and they've done the homework to say, okay, yeah, this side, West Coast, East Coast, Mid America, Europe. Lars Axelson's another one. If y'all don't follow Lars, uh, he's not afraid to call it all the way. Hey, here's what's working great in our across the pond. Here's what's working great here, and here's where he sees the in betweens. And obviously we can cancel culture still. We can turn things off when we want to, but man, there's so many great viewpoints that right now just cost us time. And like me, I've got an hour drive both ways. Man, I listen to a lot of stuff and things. Okay, wow. And yeah, some of it I get to the end, and like I said earlier, okay, wow, that's not applicable. It was great, but it's not applicable. Tuck that to the side, X, Y, and Z. Or man, there's things, man, I've stopped, I've actually pulled over the vehicle. Okay, I've got to write that down, what was just said, and whatever. Uh, and going and seeking out stuff and knowing, crazily enough, the information's there. Name dropping. Dennis Laguerre told me something earlier today on the phone. I was like, that is incredible. And yes, I will look that up. I actually wrote it down in my staff vehicle. And I'm like, I never would have thought about that, and half the stuff Dennis tells me, I'm like, okay, mind blown.
Yeah, right. I mean, yeah, the other day, or maybe it was more than the other day, I can jump on Facebook, I can message Rob Fisher, and I can ask him about chainsaws, like that, right to, an expert, just like that. Like,
100%.
it's really exciting. It's incredible how rapid that growth is happening. Or maybe it's existed and I just wasn't tuned into it in the same way, right? But it seems like over the last, even probably last 5 years, like it's really all the stars are starting to align and everyone's starting to connect. It's really cool to see.
Absolutely. No, 100%.
And so with that question of who would you put them with, now the list is huge.
Oh, yeah.
Right, because all those people were like-minded for the most part, where now it's almost like there's people regionally where you'd be like, well, where do you live? Okay, maybe, hey, you're thinking about getting in the fire service. Hey, get with this guy because he gets it. But then you go 1,000 miles somewhere else and somebody else gets it. And we're all kind of starting, like, the voice of reason is starting to get a lot louder than it used to be. So it's really cool. Last one. And hey, we still got 3 viewers in here too, man. We're almost 3 hours. That's I don't remember what my record is, but it's 3 hours pretty good and awesome stuff. Obviously the whole time. So, man, going the distance. I love it. Last question: what's the best part of the job?
Man, there's so many avenues on this too. And to chase just a couple of them, I have this quote or this saying that my dad told me when I was younger, and I've simply found this to be true. When we put the truck in park, they're happy to see us. And it may not get any better, but we have the ability to keep it from getting worse. And the times in the past 2 decades that, the hugs, the things on calls, whether they be, no matter how the call went, but, brought their problem to a resolution. You know, that's just awesome. And like I say, there's not a whole lot of jobs. There's not a lot of jobs that nobody plans on calling us. You know, if your toilet backs up, okay, find a plumber, this, that, and the other. People generally call us zero notice. You know, the majority of our stuff. So that's awesome. Now, I will say, one of the best parts of this job, and if you get the chance to do it, you'll have to maybe go to one or two places to have it. One of my first apparatus, the jump seats were open. You could see the street passing by. It was a top mount pump. You could look over the top of the cab and see that header of smoke. You knew you were going to a job. And it's still, no matter what fire station I go to, especially mine, and like I told you earlier, we've been busy past couple of weeks and months. Man, there's absolutely nothing for me that compares to walking into the fire station and smelling that they went to a job. I know all the gear weenies and all this other stuff. You know, it's supposed to smell like citrus squeeze and whatever crap. There is nothing that beats walking into the firehouse and smelling work. And, and just sitting there, and especially now, and once again, I know guys will find this hard to believe. Man, just, hey, buddy, tell me, man, what'd y'all do? And I get the times. I know where they went. Man, tell me about this. How did this? And just sit there with my cup of coffee or a cigar or whatever we're doing and just hear the talks and the stuff. I know there's other professions that do it. Ours, the military, some police stuff. We're one of the few professions that do it at the risk factor. You know, there's a chance you don't come home. I don't think that'll ever get old. And then what's crazy, I told my wife, I actually said that in a video 16, 17, 18 years ago. I mean, to walk in the fire station, like my dad's house, you could tell they had been to fires, and just the smell. But I think what's actually number one for me, and this just popped into my head, and I do this on such a regular basis. When my dad was 15, 16, 17 years old, a Fort Worth fireman waved at him. And he said to himself, man, that's got to be the best job there is. 38 years later, another decade of helping teach fire history, whether I'm responding to a call or whatever, and especially when I'm in the engine or truck, to see those kids, to see the adults. We drive in a $1 million time machine. We take people back to their childhood with the foot pedal and the Q2 and with the Dalmatian and the stuff. And man, we could be our own radio nostalgia rolling show. People remember those things and the sights and smells of us working. And they remember above all us just being nice and giving a crap about their problem. And I know that ties into what I said at the first part, but that's the best part. And when I'm sitting, what I've asked my wife at my nursing home, I want some emergency playing. I want some radio traffic playing. And occasionally bring by just something, a dirty ass piece of wood from a house fire if she can smuggle it in or the kids can smuggle it in. Man, I love smelling work. And then shoot, I'll kick off onto the reward. And maybe heaven needs one more truckie.
Hey.
And if he puts me on the hose, I'll be fine. I'm happy with that. Yeah, wherever you want me, Lord. And Dave, you've got writ. No.
You're gonna be standing for a while. No.
Yeah, there's just a ceiling flagpoles. I'm like, oh. Yeah, we got those new 8-hour bottles. No.
No.
Um, but yeah, no, that's yeah.
I love it. It's a great answer. And great episode. And I
No,
really
man,
appreciate your conversation and staying up late and doing all that fun stuff.
absolutely.
Man, it was a blast. I hope to see you this year. Well, more than likely next year at FDIC. Hopefully, I run into you and
Yeah,
find a way.
let's do it, and yeah, we'll do whatever we do.
Yeah, yeah,
And, I'll be the one that looks like me,
yeah.
and
I'll be the one that looks like me. So,
I'm usually a wallflower. I think Stephanie's going to try and come with me this time
ah,
since I'm presenting, and then yeah, I'm usually just the semi-shy guy on the side, and the guys I travel with, they're out doing their thing.
yeah.
So, but no, yeah, we'll definitely get together and make a go of it.
Yeah, and congrats again. It's a huge achievement to teach there. So,
Yeah,
congrats
crazy
again.
honored and totally humbled by it, and gonna add a few more slides to my presentation.
Nice.
Uh,
There you go.
so awesome.
Well, all right. Thank you again for coming on. If here, I'm gonna end the stream here in a second. So, thank you guys for listening. Dave, again, thanks for coming on, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Awesome.
If I can figure out how to end it again, there we go.